Community and Technical College president to say a few words of welcome.
Be really brief. On behalf of faculty, staff, and students at Jefferson, we're so proud to have you here on our campus. We're under a lot of construction. I hope you take the time to step out and gander what's going on. We're in the process of spending about $100 million to improve this downtown campus. So that's a combination of common, state, and community funding that's getting us there. So we're proud of the progress. The whole idea of hosting you here in September was to show you the finished product. And if you walk around, you'll see we didn't get a chance to do that. Weather hit us and some other delays on materials and things. They'll be wrapping up these projects here in the next 6 weeks.
Dr. Handy, you stand behind the mic.
I can stand behind the mic.
Oh, I thought we'd get picked up by the other mics. And then we're already seeing the benefits of the growth and development that we're doing here at the college. For the first time in 14 years, we have over 14,000 students. So we've hit a real milestone for us to come back from where we were. Higher ed, community college instruction is oftentimes a leading economic indicator of tough times. And the last time we had really tough times was coming out of 2010, 2011. And that's when we hit a peak in our enrollment. We actually did hit 15,000 students at that point. But I'm not saying we're heading that direction today, but I'm pleased to see that our enrollment has come back. And many of our students are saying, first of all, they're smart consumers and they're recognizing the value that we offer. And also that this really does feel like a college. 80% of our student body says they feel like they have a sense of belonging here. They feel like they should be at Jefferson. And we like that. We want our students to feel like they matter here. And so with that, let me just say thanks for coming. If we can help you with anything while you're here, let us know. There are some restrooms right outside to the left. If you go around the big desk, men and women's restrooms are right there. Questions, comments for me? I hand my time back over. Thank you.
Thank you. The minutes have been distributed to all members. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes from June 12th through 13th of 2025? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Objections to the motion to approve? The motion passes by consensus.
Okay. I'm excited to kick off my first board meeting as chair by highlighting some of the exciting things going on in KCTCS. This fall, enrollment is up. Everyone is working very hard to develop the next 4-year strategic plan for KCTCS. And Dr. Quarles and his team are working to build strong relationships with businesses across the Commonwealth to make sure we are prepared our students to be Kentucky's future workforce. We have a full agenda, so I'd like to get started. Dr. Quarles, will you please provide your report?
Yes. Thanks you, Mr. Chair. And first off, thank you to President Handy and JCTC. The lunch we just had was cooked by and provided by our culinary arts students. So thank you. I think they deserve a round of applause. So fantastic. And thank you, Chef Kathy, as well. And we'll be providing breakfast tomorrow as well for our community breakfast. First off, we have some new regents recently appointed by the governor and also our students elected among their peers. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, let's take a moment to introduce our new regents. First off, we have Dr. Tara Horn of Pulaski County. Welcome. If you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Dr. Tara Horn. I own a women's health practice. My parents are educators, and I'm very excited to be on this board.
We have Mr. Ken Hunt from McCracken County.
Yeah, I'm Ken Hunt. I was appointed by the governor as well. I kind of question why he would ask me to do this, but so, you know, you've got a little background in construction and different things, so I'm practical minded. So anyway, I'm excited to be here and really have enjoyed the day so far. Got off to a good start.
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. And I love when we get to work with our students. We have two newly elected students. This is their first meetings with a year-long tour ahead of them, and we'll start with Ella Fulton.
Hi, I'm Ella Fulton. I'm a student at Maysville Community and Technical College, and I actually plan on transferring to EKU, where I want to obtain a degree in mathematics with a minor in extramural science with hopes of becoming an actuary. So I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. And Josh Gibbons.
Thank you, Dr. Quarles. My name is Josh Gibbons. I am a third semester nursing student at mighty Madisonville Community College. As I often tell my nursing student friends, it is a privilege to be here, and it is certainly a privilege to be elected and entrusted as a student regent on the board of Regents. And thank you.
Yeah. Welcome aboard, and for our students, you're full members. So we've got you populated in respective committees, and we look forward to your all's input because we're here to serve you all. We started this semester off strong. If you don't mind, my quarterly report should be in front of you if you want to follow along. We are excited to announce that enrollment is up 6.4% from this time last year, and that's on top of a 7+% increase from the year before. So that brings us to over 70,000 students and growing. We expect to hit 85,000 students by the end of the calendar year. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to our respective recruiters and marketing staff all across the system for a job well done with enrollment up practically all across the state. We also saw a big surge, unsurprisingly, with our dual credit enrollment. So we're in more high schools. We have more students starting their college journey with us, which is great for us, and hopefully finishing their associate's degree with us as well. I also told you back at our June meeting that we had two historic statistics and milestones that are worth repeating again. Recent data shows that we are an affordable system, an affordable option with over 70% of our graduates finishing KCTCS with no student loan debt. And that's something that we'd love to acknowledge and help promote prospective students to come to us because we have financial aid packages, scholarships, and we are affordable. And secondly, it's worth noting, especially for our new regents, that we just had the highest number of graduates with degrees and credentials and everything in between in the history of the community college system in Kentucky this past spring. So congratulations to all those perhaps listening at home, to our presidents, our executive team for a job well done. We're starting off with a lot of momentum as well. Speaking of scholarships, we've added a few more dollars to our coffers. We had a great partnership with the Public Service Commission where they announced that the 811 call before your dig number, the initiative, perhaps some of you all know about that. They collect fines from people that perhaps dig in places they shouldn't. They're using those fines to fund scholarships for our students. And we're targeting this scholarship. We're starting off about $60,000 towards those technical and trade programs that are perhaps most closely aligned to the construction management aspect, heavy equipment operators, et cetera. So we're so thrilled to partner with the state agency here in Kentucky to provide more scholarships for our students. We've also partnered with Kentucky 4-H, the largest youth organization in Kentucky, over 200,000 members, and Kentucky FFA as well. So we're actually providing scholarships for them to come join us as college students. The next topic is one where we're starting a journey that a lot of our colleges have started on years ago. But during COVID, we realized that America has a mental health crisis. And that means our students are affected by this as well. So we were proud to partner with the JED Foundation and CPE to get some survey results back, which we've shared with you, that kind of reveals what we know, that a lot of our students self-report anxiety, depression, other mental health stressors. And so it's time for us to take the next step and embrace a KCTCS mental health strategies. This effort is starting this fall. It's a multi-tier beginning for us to provide resources, not just for our students, but faculty and staff as well. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we met with the American Red Cross on perhaps some free training that can occur around Kentucky as well. So this is a starting point. We've had a lot of great strategies already implemented, and our presidents can tell you what the current status is. So thank you for your help on that. But we're moving forward with our mental health strategy. We had some exciting things happen since our last Board of Regents meeting. Somerset Community College printed the first 3D house in Kentucky. And so if you saw this on the news, we literally were able to collect the minds and talents of people like Eric Woolridge and Dr. Castle's leadership to print a house out of concrete. And so this reflects that we are not only providing workforce training for future technology uses, but we're part of Kentucky's strategy towards resilient housing. And this house is actually designed to withstand natural disasters, whether it be flooding, tornadoes, et cetera. And so we think this is just another example of how our additive manufacturing initiative continues to not only build a house, but also helps promote what we're doing across the state and be a leader. We've also had a lot of interaction with our companies. As you all know, KCTCS works with about 3,000 companies on an annual basis. Over 80,000 people are trained through our workforce initiatives with Workforce Solutions, our Trains program as well. So we have about 110,000 plus students. This is around 80,000 people on top of that we're training in their businesses or they're coming to our campus. And so we're really excited to see that we're integrating our technical expertise and workforce portfolio to help our businesses out as well. In fact, we had over 300 trains projects and helped over 200 companies across the state. And this will be an additional funding request for the General Assembly to help provide that 75% grant to help provide more training on the workforce solutions side. Speaking of partnerships, we're partnering with the Kentucky State Board of Elections. We know there's a lot of turnover in our courthouses, and that a lot of our county clerks are prepping for elections. And so we are working with our 120 county clerks to create a module, an Elections 101, to help them better prep for the conduction of our elections across our state. So this is going to be one of many new initiatives that we're starting to help see what we can do to help local government and state government out as well at KCTCS. I mentioned our 3D printed housing initiative, but also be mindful that this is an area that's going on at multiple colleges. For those who are on a tour this morning, you saw some of our 3D printed machines. We've yet to 3D print food yet, Dr. Handy, but I think we might be able to get there. But this is an area, again, where our businesses are saying we need graduates who know how to do this as well. We're also focusing with Tanel Sawyer with her position on partnerships with the KCTCS for Kentucky initiative, which we announced at the June board meeting. And so this is an opportunity for us to engage with our civic leaders across the state, our K-12 partners, nonprofits, students, alumni, our current businesses, perhaps businesses that never have been associated with our local community college, to make sure that we are checking in to see if we can partner with them. Most recently, we've met with the Kentucky Personnel Cabinet, which represents 30,000 civil employees across the state, to see if there's any customized training we can provide on behalf of the state. We're meeting with KLC and KCO on the local government needs, and a lot of them hire employees that need CDLs. Well, I hope that their local community college is the provider of choice. And so we're trying to make sure that we meet with them and provide technical expertise for those Kentucky organizations that need us. I'm also excited to announce that we have 3 new presidents with us. In fact, if you don't mind, please help me welcome or re-welcome Dr. Todd Brand, who serves as president at Big Sandy Community and Technical College. Thank you so much, and congrats on your appointment. We also have Dr. Lee Harrison, president of Southeast Kentucky Community Technical College as well. Congratulations, President. And Dr. Michelle Treywick at Sky CTC. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you, and congrats. And we just held our first ever formal new president's orientation, something that we're going to put into regular use in years to come. We also want to welcome Mr. Flowhouse, who's representing Ashland here today. As you all may know, Dr. Larry Ferguson will be joining us. He looks forward to joining us at our next Board of Regents meeting. But thank you, Mr. Flowhouse, for being here as well. And we know Dr. Ferguson's listening, so we're keeping you in our thoughts. We appreciate that. We just hosted our first ever KCTCS Clay Classic fundraiser this past week. We raised $30,000, and so we appreciate that. I think that was a pretty good start for an inaugural event. So thank you, Dr. Stith and Melissa and our marketing department for the work that's been put into that, and we look forward to that. At the last meeting, I mentioned we're going to have a KCTCS application for our own license plate. It was just approved this week, and so we look forward to getting that out. We'll resend out the license plate. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it takes off, and that will be a benefit for us, but also visibility as we are stuck in traffic jams across our state. Our friends in the Fire Commission are going to join us tomorrow for an annual update and presentation. They actually hosted our executive team a few weeks ago at their headquarters in Paris, and they got to show us some of the training. So again, 110,000 plus students, 80,000 Kentuckians benefiting from our workforce training, an additional 17,000 or so firefighters in our state, where we provide the vast majority of their annual training. And a lot of people may not realize that's part of the KCTCS umbrella. And they'll be here tomorrow as well. Look forward to that presentation. We've also been active with regional associations across our state. We were so proud to be at the Kentucky State Fair a few weeks ago, 600,000 people walking around our fairgrounds. And for the second year in a row, we were recruiting students right there on the spot over 11 days. So we talked to a lot of parents, and they said the affordability of KCTCS is why I want my child to start with you. We appreciate that. We also had a big presence at SOAR in Eastern Kentucky. Congratulations, Regent Martin, on winning, I believe, Business of the Year. Is that right? Congratulations on that. And we also had several of our presidents there, but for those who may have attended SOAR or watched online, you probably saw a unique podium. Well, that was printed by, again, Somerset Community College with our 3D concrete printer. So it was really cool to have that on stage as well. Other than that, some other updates is that the OB3, One Big Beautiful Bill, included something that has been advocated for over a decade now, and that's a new funding source for technical and trade programs. Part of that legislation includes a new workforce Pell that we believe will go into effect July 1st of next year, but we're not exactly sure on that. But this would be a dedicated new funding source that would somewhat mimic the current Pell Grant, but these would be for programs that are 8 to 15 weeks in length that are focused on workforce training certificates. And so, not knowing what the rules might be or the guidelines, just this week we launched a Workforce Pell working group. So this will be a working group inside KCTCS that's going to prepare our programs in case we have to pivot in the spring, to make sure that as many of our programs as possible, appropriately so, fall underneath the Workforce Pell jurisdiction. So we want to make sure that our programs are aligning with this new funding source. So we're preparing for whatever that those requirements might be. We have a lot of great presentations today and tomorrow. We have new reports out on our annual workforce report that shows you what we're doing with our businesses. We also have a wonderful technology solutions report, which will tell you how many Teams meetings we've had over the past year. It's always mind-boggling. And I just want to say that we're having some fun as well. This past July, our team came together at the system office and we had our annual picnic. I cooked 52 pounds of meat through the night for 18 hours. And we're starting to have a little fun around the office as well. And we're really proud of that, which brings me to my last point. This is the first time since starting this job that every position and every presidency is filled. We don't have any active searches going on. I'm proud of the presidents and their success and their respective leadership teams back in their area of Kentucky. I'm proud of our executive team at the system office and our system office support staff. And for those that may be watching, I'm proud of our faculty who are in the classroom every single day and their support staff as well, including the folks that make our campuses look nice. So a sincere thank you for what everyone does with our 4,000 full-time employees across Kentucky, plus our part-time workers. You're making me proud, and you're making us have a great story to tell across Kentucky, because our success are with our students. And I just want to say a sincere thank you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my report.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to financial report. Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Todd Kilburn, would you please provide the financial report?
Well, thank you, Chair Hamilton. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to talk you through our financial report. The one thing I will say is that at this meeting, we are looking at numbers that closed as of June 30th of 2025. We are in the midst of our financial audit with our company called Forvis Mazars. And so there are times where they come in and they make some adjustments or say we need to record some things differently. So these are not the final financial numbers, but these are where things stood as of June 30th before the financial review with Forvis Mazars. A couple of things I would like to highlight. This indicates our total operating revenues this year at $957 million, which is at 107% of what we had budgeted. So our revenue has been good in 2025. Our statement of current funds, revenue expenses also reflects operating and expenses of $913,720,000 or 91% of the budgeted expenses. So we had more in revenue and less in expenses than that for which we had budgeted, which I think puts us in a very positive place. I will talk to you a little bit more about that, but our net position remains at a strong $1,339,080,000 as of June 30th, subject to those ultimate financial reviews. So we're in a good place. Again, we'll talk about those in a little more detail in the moments to follow, but just as the high level overview, that's where we stand financially at this point. We like to give you a quarterly update as well on the KCTCS trains work that we've been doing with Jessie Shook and her workforce team. We had approved 374 training projects with current open commitments of $1,326,000. And funds have been reimbursed to the colleges already for active and closed projects through June 30th, totaling $7,578,000 plus dollars. So the trains program continues to be a great project for us. We're continuing to invest in that and work with our industry partners. Very pleased with that. But as a part of our quarterly updates, we give you a sense of just where we stand with that particular item. The last item where we update you on a quarterly basis is our other post-employment benefits trust update. The third agenda item really deals with the committee and a couple of things, but I did want to point out our financial position. On July 1st, at the start of this last fiscal year, the trust held a value of $239 million. This is a trust that goes to retiree benefits for those KCTCS employees who elected into that program prior to 2009. And through good investment by our investment folks, we had mixed equity positions at about 149 million, fixed income assets of 89 million. By the end of June, our portfolio had grown to $259 million, just over that, which indicates a net increase of $20 million or 8.39%. If you back out the fees that are associated with this and the management of that with our investment advisors, our growth rate for this last year was 11.15%. And the first question I get asked when I share that information is, can we invest with you? And the answer is no, you can't. We wish that we could. But the OPEB has been a good investment for us. We have a team that's watching that very carefully to make sure that our employees are well taken care of through their retirement. And we'll talk a little bit more about that from a larger perspective, but just from the dollar perspective, that's where the OPEB trust stands. On our statement of current funds, revenue, and expenses, I generally like to call out those items that are seem to be a little more or less than we anticipated. Our investment income, and this relates to that OPEB trust number. You'll see investment income. We had budgeted $10,150,000 for that. Previously, the year before, we had budgeted 1 million, and we saw that we were having a good investment returns. And so we decided that this year we would up that budget number. We still exceeded that number, and we're at $23 million, or 235% increase over our budget, which is great. Couple of other items, governmental grants and contracts. That number relates to the Fire Commission, and there's a Fire Commission surtax that's assessed. And this almost exclusively government grants and contracts refers to that surtax. Sales and services. Part of this is some bookkeeping that was involved last year. There had been a transfer given back to our colleges from some reserves that we had on the basis of some audits that were done. 23 million was given back to the colleges. We see some of that as this is some of the bookkeeping that worked around that to make sure that that happened in this year, which we won't see in previous years. On the expenditures by program, places under instruction, there were some salary increases. So we see the number from last year has increased. Under student services, there were some increases in federal work study for students. And so that's where we see some of the expenditures primarily around student services. Student financial aid was down a little bit this year compared to last year. Excuse me, was up a little bit this year compared to last year, even though we'd reduced our budget a little bit. That's good for our students, that more of our students were getting financial aid at a higher rate. So even though we're spending it, we're seeing it come in. So that's a good thing for us. And operations and maintenance primarily had to do, the decrease this year was related to transfers that colleges make from their funds to be able to fund capital projects. There were fewer of those this year, so that's why we've seen a little bit of a decrease this year. But our operating revenues in excess of expenditures this last year was just over $44 million. So we continue to try to manage our budget wisely and thoughtfully. We want to be good stewards of the resources provided to us by the Commonwealth and through our students. And so that's basically where we stand on revenues and expenses. I'll pause there for a moment. I know you're all scintillated with all this information and probably have some questions, but if you have a question, I'm happy to answer that. All right, I will move on then to the statement of net position, which is attachment B. Our cash and cash equivalents this year was up from last year, basically due to an increase in grants that we received. That moving into the future is something we will see how that goes in the future. But this year we had an increase in our grants. Other current assets was down a little bit. That's because of some changes and an early payoff of some debt on the system office building. And so that resulted in our other current assets number declining just a little bit this year. Under our non-recurring assets, you'll see net other post-employment benefit assets. Again, that's related to that other post-employment benefit increase in our revenue. And under capital assets, we see the ownership at the system office moving into that place rather than it being under the other current assets as above. It is now a non-current asset. It's something that's not just in this fiscal year. It's something that we hold on a regular basis. Under deferred outflows, the deferred outflows under pension, that number declined a little bit. Those are funds that go to those employees that are in the KERS or KTRS systems, which were prior to the formation of KCTCS as a whole. A number of people have come over with those benefits. As we're seeing more of those people retire, that number will dwindle a little bit every year. And so this reflects that decrease because we have less in capital assets related to that. Under our liabilities, leases payable, that was, you'll see a little bit of a reduction there. That was because of a reduction in leased vehicles and equipment. Because we're in a strong financial position, we've been purchasing vehicles rather than leasing them and trying to make sure that we manage our our leases well. And so we're seeing less on the leases, which is why you see some reduction there. And under notes payable, this relates to Build Smart funds that were given to the system to purchase buildings and for which we continue to pay currently. And then lastly, on this sheet, under deferred inflows, this has to do with changes in movement of those pension liabilities. The slight reduction that you will see has to do with there are fewer of those that we have to account for moving into the future because we've had more people who have retired. So that's the statement of net position and also our net position. Any questions around any of that? Okay. And then I will just note following that, we have statements for each of our colleges. We are working with our auditors to try to reallocate some of these things so these numbers will change, particularly numbers that may have negatively impacted our colleges. We're talking about moving some things into the system office for that, but you can take a look through that. Most of all of our colleges are in a strong financial position. Where we see concerns, we try to work with Dr. Quarles and talk about wherever there might be concerns around that. But generally, our colleges are in a good place, and as a system, I think we're in a healthy and strong position. And so with that, again, I would open it up for any questions around the financial report. As I often say, I can answer any question you have, sometimes with, I don't know, I'll get back to you. So, all right. Biennial budget. Move on to that, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the biennial budget request, this request is for the 2026-2028 biennial budget. A couple of things to maybe tee up this conversation and just help you in understanding some of the materials. As we look at this, much of this is contingent on the Council for Post-Secondary Education, or CPE, and much of what they are working with. Their board just met last Friday and gave some budget counsel, which caused us to change some of the documents that were initially submitted. We were changing some things at their request, even into the evening last night, to put this together. We will let you know that there could potentially be more changes in the future with CPE, and so we recognize that there may be some changes to this and how it's allocated within these items, but this is the basic budget that we're looking at, and so we will be asking you for approval contingent on that Council of Post-Secondary Education. One thing that might be helpful, and I get this question a lot, when you look at the chart and you look, for example, at base adjustments for the next 2 years, you'll see inflation adjustment and fire and tornado insurance. Those things moving into the next year have been merged into one particular item. It's all in the inflation adjustment at this point. And so that's why you will see that you won't see two numbers there. You will only see one number there. The other question I get frequently as we've been looking at this is, does that mean that we're going to get $8 million, $8.3 million in 26-27 and an additional $16.8 million in 27-28? And the answer is no. This is the way this gets put together for CPE. That's the addition over the current year's budgeted amount. So year one is 8.34 million. The second year is also 8.34 million, but the cumulative effect of that is the 16,681,900. So when you see those numbers, this reflects year by year, and the second year is the total amount over the 2 years. The first column there, 26-27, is the proposed request just for that fiscal year. So we're also including this year, if you note, CPE has asked us to include our debt service. Our debt service is provided within our funds that we receive and then immediately given right back to the state. In previous years, that wasn't even in our books or in our process. CPE has asked us to include that this year, so that debt service is allocated to us and then immediately returned to the state. So as we look at our budget request for this year, we're seeing our base appropriation move as a system from 173 million to 184 million in both 26 and 27, with those base adjustments for inflation, performance funding, which is one of the pieces that may still be in flux, where we're asking you for some guidance, debt service, and for operating for our prison education program. So when we look at all of these items together, we're moving from a 25-26 operating budget of 222 million to in 27-28, 271,945. That would be the amount over where we are now. So we are coming to you with a request that the KCTCS Board of Regents approve the biennial budget requests, operating and capital, and we would note this is contingent on CPE approval. But I would stand for any questions at this time.
I have a question. You said something about the debt service. Can you explain that a little better?
So this is how the state calculates our debt service around some of those bonds for Bill Smart and other things. There's debt service where we give money back to the state for some projects that have been worked on in the past. How exactly that's calculated, we've been adjusting it the last couple of days, but I can get back to you with more detail about that. But it's debt service. Again, the funds are provided by the state and then given back to the state.
Get back to me later.
Okay, will do. Will do. And if I know my team, they're watching and providing something, which we'll get to shortly.
All right, if there are no additional questions, is there a motion to approve the 2026 and 2028 biennial budget request, operation and capital for KCTCS?
Motion.
I'll second it.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Witten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Gibbons,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt, Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. You may have some questions. This is a proposal. We're all going to be going to the Capitol building starting in January. And so tomorrow during Chris Crumrine's presentation, if you have any questions about this upcoming session, and then again, a deeper dive at the December meeting about what we expect to come out of this next session, just to let you know.
Thank you. We will now have an update on the other post-employment benefit trust. Todd, would you please update us?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Every 2 years, we do an actuarial study. So I'm very glad we have a regent who's going to go into that field and may be able to help us with this. So we try to take a look at the OPEB trust, the other post-employment benefit trust, and see where our employees are, where we expect them to retire. And we try to get a sense of where we are in that and try to make sure that as we're managing the dollars, which we've already talked about, it actually will provide the support for our employees that we need up until their retirement. Based on the study by a company called Aon that they do, they have said that the end of this is actually beyond the life expectancy of all of our employees. So the projected benefits the end date is 21/12, which will be just a little bit beyond my retirement. And one of the goals is, can we fund our post-employment benefits through 21/12? We see no projected depletion date where we would run out of funds at this point, because we've had good returns, because we've had great investments over the years. Just to give you a sense, you'll see the OPEB liability at the liability at the beginning of the measurement period. So that's as of July 1st, 2025. Our liability is $206 million. Our fiduciary net position, which was as of June 30th, was 249 million. So we're doing well. This trust is in an irrevocable trust and is designed so that if there should be an economic downturn, if we should lose some ground, we still will be in a good place to provide coverage to our employees throughout their retirement. As we look at the actuarial numbers, which we report to you every other year, our active current employees in 2023 were at 898. We're now down by 161 employees to 728 based on retirements primarily. Inactive participants, those are people who are no longer employed but are retirees and surviving spouses. We went from 1,104 in 23 to 1,173 as of April 1st of 2025, with an average age of 72.6 years old. And our total participants from 2023, that middle column, 2,114, and currently $1,997. So that's where we stand as far as the actuarial studies are concerned. And we, again, continue to try to manage that. We want to make sure we take care of all of those employees well. And the trust is managed by a committee. That committee is made up of individuals at various levels throughout the system, from college presidents to staff to faculty members. And the trust committee manages and looks over what we're doing, gives us counsel, gives us advice, and they bring to you the results of the work that they've done. One of the things, and you may remember there was something about this in one of our audits, was we ought to go out and take a look at our insurance and make sure that we're doing the best that we can on the Medicare Advantage program for our employees. While I can't share with you all the details around that plan because it's still in the process of being rolled out and announced, there are no anticipated reductions in coverage, and this will result in a monthly reduction in the amount of $121.34 per employee. Considering we hadn't had an increase on the insurance on this in 5 years, we went out anticipating that there would be an increase in insurance, and we actually were able to get a reduction without any reduction in benefits to our employees. So that committee had met, and communications to those participants is just now beginning, and we will be rolling that out in the next couple of weeks. So that's where we stand. And we do have some members of the OPEB Trust Committee here, but we wanted to give you an update on where we stood and on those items. So I would stand again for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. The KCTCS Audit Committee met in August, but unfortunately, Regent Cox is not available for us today to discuss, but we will move this to an agenda item for tomorrow morning. It is time to review the internal audit plan for fiscal year 2025-2026. Todd, would you please present this item?
And actually, Mr. Chair, I believe that we're waiting for Chairman Cox to be part of that conversation for tomorrow as well. And we will have Dean Dorton on the line at that particular moment. They will talk through that.
All right. We will move on to a couple of items. Andy, will you please present the second capital construction project? Does this also need to be pulled out?
Yeah. Andy is here.
He's coming in.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's putting me to the test to see how well I paid attention to him when he explained all of this to me. But
Well, in the meantime, Mr. Chair, can I just comment on the strong fiscal stewardship? It really is to be congratulated, and particularly around the whole OPEB issue, which I know had been a concern statewide. You've done a phenomenal job, so congratulations on that.
I often say I have a great team, and they do all the really challenging work. So I commend them for it. What's that? That's right. I just stand at the podium. Here's Andy, please. I said all nice things about him. So, never fails, right? We're at the Owensboro item.
So the first thing I have before you is an action item. At Owensboro, we have a roof that is beyond its warranty and beyond its expected life, but it was in really good shape. And then we had a hailstorm come through, which wrecked the roof. So we went for insurance proceeds, and at first they said, nope, you don't get anything. We've negotiated with them, so we get 30% of the roof paid for by insurance, and we have to come up with the rest of the money. It's a $2.2 million roof. And so we're proposing, at the time of the action item was written, we had not gotten this far, but we're now proposing to use asset preservation funds from fiscal year 22-24 that we had left over because we've done really well with managing those funds. That requires a 15% match from the college, but the rest of it will come out of those state funds. And so that plus the insurance proceeds, we're asking for your approval to move forward with that.
I'll move approval. Second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Whitten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt, Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the second action item I have to bring before you is for culinary arts program at ECTC, in sum of $3,400,000. This was part of our budget request that you approved in the 24-26 fiscal year. And we're proposing to use asset preservation funds for this. But in the budget, we had indicated that we were moving the culinary arts from the OTB building, which is now under construction, over to the student center. And after investigations, we've determined that it would be too cost prohibitive to make an addition to that building, some underground utilities in the way. So we've identified with E-Town to start now to put the culinary arts into the post-secondary education center, which is central to campus and would serve us well. So we're now asking, basically, you've already approved this project, but we're asking for a relocation change to a different building on campus.
And could you refresh, so was it the same dollar amount?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
And this would be asset preservation funds. That's 100% no match from the college on that year.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Whitten, Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, one more action item, and this is a little different. So as you know, last year we opted out of the finance cabinet systems, capital construction management, and are into our own, which gives us some additional ability to do some alternative delivery methods that we could not do under Division of Engineering. So one of the things we're now ready to launch is called an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity delivery method, which I call JOC contracting, job order contracting. What we would do in this case is we would put out a RFP for and we're ready to do general contracting, roofing, mechanical, electrical, and surface concrete. So we would put out an RFP for contractors in each of our 4 areas, 4 colleges in each area, to bid a
nationally recognized costing book that architects and engineers use to do estimates, has unit prices for just about anything you can imagine in construction. So the contractor would take that book and then they would bid a coefficient from that book saying, I'll do anything in this book for say 0.85 of whatever the number is in the book, or 1.15, anywhere in that range. What this does, then it gets us contractors that we've selected partially on qualifications with a committee that looks at them, made up of 4 people from colleges, 4 people from staff, and partially on this coefficient. So we get the low bidder with better quality. What happens then, well, let me back up. Right now, if I want to bid anything between 50,000 and 100,000, I have to go get 3 quotes. College goes and gets 3 quotes to do that. If it's over 100,000, the only way we have to procure those construction services is with a public bid. That means in all cases, I have to hire an architectural team who designs the project in enough detail that any bidder can pick it up and bid exactly apples to apples. But what job order contracting would allow us to do is anything from that 50,000 all the way up to, it could go to $1 million. I'm going to go a little slow. I don't want to start off with $1 million project, but we could. Any project of that size, we can either have it designed, not to the full extent that would be necessary to bid it, but have it designed so we could get through the housing, building construction, building code enforcement or whatever, or to at least define the scope, or we can do it in-house, or we can do it with the college. And then these contractors that we've already pre-selected and have their coefficients, they would go and price that project, price everything out, give it to us. We review that with them, and then we move forward. So what we're doing is we're cutting out the time to design a lot of this stuff, and we're cutting out the time to bid this stuff. So it gives us more ability to move faster on a lot of things. And as I've told you, I think every time I've been in this room or in a room like this, in construction, time is money. Every month it takes us between when we start a project and when we bid a project, it costs us money. And so this is a way to do that. This was first invented in the 1980s. The Army Corps of Engineers used it for federal projects. The University of Kentucky, Moorhead, Eastern, and a few other universities use a similar system. We've designed ours specifically because we're in 70 campuses all over the state, so our system's a little bit different, but it is sound practice to do it this way. It's permitted under KRS 45A, but not done through DECA. Now that we are opted out under 164A, which is how we're all formed, it requires, it's not specifically mentioned as this is an alternative delivery method we can use, but you have the ability to prove that. So what I'm asking you to do is to prove for us to use this. So if I get your approval today, here's my timeline. I have an RFP ready to put out tomorrow for general contractors. I have an RFP ready to go out in 2 weeks for roofing contractors. This will cut down on the time from start to then. If you tell me no today, we'll put all that stuff in the closet and move on. So that's my ask. Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned some of the universities within Kentucky. Have they had good experience using this method?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's a proven way. It doesn't work for every project. There will still be some things that we just won't do this way. Like I said, theoretically, we could go up to $1 million, and I'd like for your approval to someday get there, but I won't start off there. We'll start off with a lot of smaller things. But if you just take the number of projects that we have across our system from 50,000 up to say 750, that is a ton of projects that we spend a lot of time trying to get it out for bid, and then the price, inflation keeps adding up. So it also, we're getting better quality because we're picking the contractors by quality and price. They're going to be contractors that we know, and so when we call these people, we can react faster. So if we have an issue like a leaky roof, which I can name about 10 places today, they're probably not leaking today because it's not raining, but it's going to leak over the weekend. I could get on with those and not spend all this design time and all this bidding time getting to that.
Or a project such as an HVAC problem at a nursing building. Right?
Yes, sir. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, sir. Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So could Todd track the cost like for a year, come back a year from now and say, hey, this is how much money we've saved, estimated, because you really wouldn't know, by doing it this way versus the old way? Because he loves capturing those things.
Yeah, I can show him where to go. You can actually Google the construction price index and see that, say from January to May of this year, because I had to do this for another presentation recently. Construction inflation went up almost 5% in just those 5 months. Every month really costs us money. And so it's easy to
Just
calculate.
like for
Right.
just to come back and say, hey, we've saved X number of dollars this year because we did this.
Thank you for asking him.
Something like that, yeah.
Yes, Andy will be happy to get me that information. He will get that information.
Right.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the use of the alternative delivery method proposed as indefinite?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Regent Stevens.
Just give it to Marty. All right, Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes, ma'am.
Secretary Whitten. Yes. Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Barton,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All righty. Over the last couple of years, we have been looking at employment benefits. Bridget, will you please update us on the KCTCS compression strategy?
Good afternoon. So I know we have some new regents, and those of you who have been around, you've heard us talk a lot about compensation and compression over the past 2 years. But I want to give those of you that are newer a little bit of background and a little bit of historical context as we have this conversation. So KCTCS went for a number of years without giving consistent pay increases to employees, primarily because of budgetary constraints, whether that was decreases in state appropriations, decreases in enrollment. Regardless, that's where we ended up. At the same time, you had things happening in terms of inflation. You had a lot of very hard to fill positions across the system, where you were having to bring employees in perhaps at a higher salary than what we had individuals that were already employed at our different colleges and at the system office. So a number of different factors contributed to a state that none of us enjoyed. Let's just put it that way. So a couple of years ago, this board made the decision that we needed to put employees at the front as we were having budget conversations every year, as opposed to it being kind of the last dollar. If we had money left, then we would try to address compensation for employees. So they brought in a consulting firm. Huron Consulting came in, worked with the entire system. Primarily, they dealt a lot with the HR professionals across the system to develop a compensation program that was implemented in July of last year. So we are 1 year and a couple of months into, I will say it was both a painful process, I think would be the nice way of putting it, but at the same time, I am still very proud of the work that was done and where we are today compared to where we have been. I've been in this organization for 19 years now. So where things have come from that standpoint, I still am very proud of that, always knowing that there is work to be done and lots of review to continue to happen. But one of the big factors that we continued to hear throughout the entire process was this concept of compression. And so if you want to go ahead, Keith, I'll give you a little bit of, so these are slides I can't take credit for that Todd Kilborn showed the board in June at that meeting, but just kind of as a refresher for everyone to then get into where we're headed. So this just talks about from pay scale what compression actually is. You can move on. And again, like I said, in terms of causes of compression, right? So there are anything from supply and demand, minimum wages increase, inflation in the market. For us, what was obviously became very apparent to us was pay ranges were out of date. So we weren't adjusting our compensation and pay range structure to match what was happening in the market. The compensation structure was very broad. So while we had pay bands where our positions fell into, they were very broad in range. So you could have somewhat, in some instances, they were $20,000 and $30,000 differences in those pay ranges. So, so they were very broad, and we had to take steps to address that. And then again, we didn't have consistent pay increases, salary adjustments every year. Next slide, please. And this again just talks about the work that was done. It was almost a 2-year project of the compensation program's development, the analysis of where we were, where we needed to be. And that went into place July 1 of last year. And to give you an idea, so the top 3 things are the things in terms of what oftentimes causes compression that we can't control. They are outside of the control of any of us in this organization. Those that are in color for you are the things that we do impact and the work that we do impacts. And so the pay ranges, the compensation structure being too broad, that was all part of the work that was done in conjunction with Huron and has been implemented. And then the budget process. So this board actually put forward to the colleges and to the system office that every year we are to budget for 3% out of all of our budgets to perhaps then be used. And ultimately you all vote on that as to how that gets used, but for compensation adjustments and increases for our employees. So that is more of a regular scale than what it has ever been in the past. So in 2026, fiscal year 2026, so that started in July 1, that we're here, remember, we did take that 3%, and it was recommended to the board, and the board approved that 2% of that be used for an across the board. Everyone got a 2% increase. The remaining 1% of that budgetary amount was then utilized to do a compression adjustment. We utilized in July, we utilized years of service, and we did that for a number of reasons. One, we thought it would have the broadest impact across the entire system. It was also what we continued to hear the most about when we heard from employees. It was, I've been here for however many years and I'm making the same or sometimes less than somebody that was recently hired. So we did put in a scale for that years of service, and employees did get an adjustment based upon years of service in addition to the across the board increases. This was, again, Todd's slide from June. So what Todd put forward to you all in talking about what the future state might be as we continue to look at compression. He introduced this factor, or us being focused more on compa ratio. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it gave us a more definitive metric that we will be able to utilize as opposed to just kind of a arbitrary, what are we going to do about compression and how are we going to address that? So if you'll give me the next slide. So for those of you not always in the compensation world, this is just a generalized definition for you of what compa ratio actually is. So if you think about it, it more is about what's the penetration of an employee into the pay band in which their position actually sits compared to what the market. So in our pay structure, in every pay band, there's a minimum, a market, and a maximum. And so you're really trying to get your employees to be at least at that market rate. And so that this calculation shows you where they're at and where they're at compared to that market. Typically, this is what in the compensation world, what will be told as, hey, this is what's considered the normal and where things kind of range. So typically your employees will be anywhere between 80% and 120% of that pay band. So for us at KCTCS, our goal is going to be that our employees will fall between the 90% and 110% of that pay band. So right in that sweet spot of just a little bit below what market is to above market. That is our goal and where we want to get our employees to. So I also want to provide some context to you because I think it is important for us to be able to see what the decisions that this board made and what Dr. Quarles and his leadership team, their decisions, what the impact of that was. So this first chart shows you where our employees were at in terms of their compa ratio on June 30th of this past of 2025. Then we implemented the 2% increase and we implemented that compression adjustment based upon years of service. So the next table is what that actually resulted in. And so what I want us to, I know we have a lot of conversations and oftentimes we get down on ourselves or a little bit negative, right, about we know we'd like to pay people a lot more. We know employees would like to earn more, but just to be able to show for you what that actually what happened as it related to that compa ratio. So all of the things that are in green, so those that are specifically below in June 30th, so that we had a lot of employees that were, well, not a lot, we had 3 employees that were in the 71 to 75th percentile, and we had 76 to 80. Those both actually declined, which is a good thing for us. So that means that we moved those employees, more employees from those lower below market closer to, getting them closer to the market. The same thing happened for those that are above. So if we said our goal is that 90th percent of the market, if you look below the red line, you can see that we have a lot more people that transitioned up from the top up here to the higher at market or above market. We had a movement there as well. So it did make an impact. And so that is the importance I would stress of, yes, of us continuing to look at and be able to budget for increases on a regular cadence, and then for us to be able to continue to look at compression in the future as well. So the strategy that we have here, Todd, myself, Amanda Conley that works in my office, she is in charge of all things compensation for the system. We met and looked at a lot of data. We actually also, Amanda reached out to a number of the 4-year universities in Kentucky, and she also spoke with several community college systems across the country. And had lots of conversations with them about what are they doing, just to kind of get a gauge. Are we on track with our peers? Are we ahead of them? What's happening out there? And actually, I will tell you what the conversations that she had with them, many of them that she talked to said, well, gosh, we wish that we were able to do what you all are doing. We haven't touched our pay structures in 10 and 15 years, and you all are far ahead of us. So again, I say, I know we oftentimes do look at this and think, oh gosh, we wish we could do more, but we really are taking steps to address things that many of our counterparts are not able to do. But going forward, so what we are going to utilize is we're going to utilize 3 factors that we will calculate when we're talking about compression. So we will use the compa ratio, we're going to look at years in position, and we're going to look at performance of employees. And we chose those 3 things because they actually align with what the compensation philosophy and the compensation program actually say. And so they do include things that say we are going to reward employees for performance. We're going to look at, positions and where their position falls within that pay band and where they fall as it relates to the market. So those 3 factors will be the 3 things that we will every year be using and calculating so that when these discussions then happen as it relates to the budget and what do we want to do for employees, that will be a component and a factor for us to be able to look at. And how that's going to work. So those 3 factors are going to each be assigned a weight. And we will look at every employee. So we will pull the data from the compensation platform that we have implemented and are using for a lot of tracking and reporting. So we will pull the data from there, and we're going to calculate a compression score for every employee based upon those 3 factors and the weights that are assigned to them. So every full-time regular employee will then have a compression score. So then as Dr. Quarles and his leadership team are then bringing about the recommendation of what will come before you as the board in terms of an annual increase, they will also be looking at this compression scores for employees. And we, Todd, myself, Amanda, will be sharing with them, hey, this is what we think needs to happen. And I will say it will not always be, more than likely, it could possibly be an across the board, right? That we're going to give, and it's a graduated scale, that if your compression score falls in this range, that equates to this percentage of an additional increase. It could also, though, look different than that. It could be that we are also seeing that there's a very high turnover in a particular population of our employees or within a particular pay band of our employees. So we're going to specifically target that employee population, but still utilize the compression score for those employees within that targeted population. How much does each one of them get? So it will be a tool that will be used and will be able to be looked at by the leadership as, and then brought before you as that recommendation for the annual increases comes to fruition. So again, this is just kind of a summary of what I've just said to you all. So again, it's a tool. It's not an automatic that everybody then is going to get a compression adjustment. It will depend on what that scale looks like and who the targeted population is, if it's everyone or if it is a certain group. It does allow for more of in my opinion, it's more of a fair progression. So it's not just an arbitrary, well, we think we have an issue with this group of employees, or gosh, somebody really likes this employee. It is a calculation that is done and very much mathematical, and you can't really argue with the numbers when it all spits out. So I think that will be able to, for us to be able to have more consistency in how we calculate and how we implement things. It will still allow for flexibility at a local level. So if the colleges, which has happened over the past couple of years, you know, if colleges are having a really great year budgetarily because their enrollment is way up, or because they specifically at their location see we've really got a problem with X, whatever group of employees that might be, it still allows them the flexibility that they can on their own, if they choose to do something in addition to what this board passes, they will still have the ability to be able to do that as well. And I think that's my last slide on that, isn't it? Yeah. Any questions about that?
Yes.
Of course I have questions, right?
That's
So
okay.
first I want to applaud everyone on your team and Kilburn's team. And the conversations, discussions around this have been sometimes mind-numbing and make us want to run from the room. So I do applaud all of the work that's gone into this. Question related to that comp score, and I'm just thinking from a very faculty mindset here,
Absolutely.
as I likely always do. So when we talk about performance reviews for faculty, we do know that tenured faculty in some institutions are allowed to opt out of that performance review every other year. So it seems to me, I'm making some assumptions here, that would be a bad idea if this is going to be evaluated every year.
It carries. So if a faculty member opts out because they have that option, it's the prior year's performance evaluation carries to the next year.
Lovely. Okay. And just assuming, because we know that if you opt out, it's an M, it would just be a meets. Even if it was an M, or is that the breaking point? Or are we saying because typically that's what we say as a board. If you met everything in your job description, then you're good to go.
Right.
So that's not gonna.
So we had a very robust conversation at the PLT meeting last week about the performance factor. Because we all know, love it, hate it. I've yet to find a performance tool that I am just ecstatic about. But there are challenges with our performance evaluation tools. We have the staff tool looks very different from the faculty tool, has different ratings that they're rated on a 3 rating system, faculty are on a 5 rating system. The ultimate goal will be for us to have a graduated scale, right? So if you get an EE, that is a higher score in that calculation than if you just get a meets. Where we're at right now, it will be you meet or you don't meet. So as long as you've got that meet, so in its infancy as we're starting, until we can really dig into the actual performance evaluation tool itself, that's what it will be for now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I
think
just
have
want to say thank you, VP Bridget Cantor and your team, as well as Todd and members of PLT for helping scrub and evaluate and run scenarios. Compared to where we were at last year, progress has been made. I've heard a lot of compliments, anecdotal, and a sincere appreciation for starting to address this. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good.
Mark.
Is there a motion to ratify the personnel actions from May 1st, 2025 through July 31st, 2025?
May I ask a question? You know, I'm going to ask this question. I always ask this question. I know you're prepared for it. So when I look at the resignations and those exit interviews that we continue to do with our employees, can you give me any indication of what those reasons were?
Sure. So of the total, retirements, resignations, non-renewal of appointments. So everyone, again, gets an exit interview link sent to them. So of that, there were 85 respondents over the course of May 1st through August the 31st. In that, the reasons contributing to leaving, the top 2 answers by those that responded were better opportunity and personal reasons. And if you break down the better opportunity, it then was career development and higher salary were the 2 underneath that better opportunities. I will say there is a question that is asked at the end that asked them if they would recommend KCTCS as a place of employment, and 90.8% said yes, they would.
Wow.
And at the same time, 83% said that they themselves would consider being reemployed by us. So I think those are good numbers for us as well. So yes, so I just am seeking a motion to ratify the personnel actions for May 1st through July 31st.
Second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Witten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Quarles, at the last meeting, you presented your goals and objectives. Would you like to provide a brief refresher?
Thank you, Chair. So annually at the June meeting, we want to set the precedent that this are the areas of focus for the upcoming academic year. And this past May, you all evaluated me on that for my first year as a performance. This past June meeting, I presented more goals and objectives for this upcoming year. And so I think there's been adequate time for you all to digest this, consider it. And today we actually would like to ask you to approve these for the next year. And again, I like to have goals that are ambitious, that if I have goals where we're hitting 100%, well, maybe we should add a few more, or maybe there should be more metrics to that. And so, again, this is an opportunity for us to formalize the goals and vision, but also formalize that into the presidential evaluation for the upcoming year as well. Happy to answer any questions you may have. And these goals and visions have been emailed out to the entire KCTCS community. Any questions?
Well, how about a comment? I think very clear, very concise, and I congratulate you again for doing that. I love the whole transparency of it and the accountability of it.
Thank you.
I did have a comment, Dr. Quarles, in reviewing this from a student's standpoint, I do appreciate your focus on not only student experience, but student success going well into the future. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
As a former Lexington Community College student, I would agree. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the KCTCS President's goals and objectives for 2025 and 2026?
So moved.
I'll second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Whitten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Bolton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay.
Alrighty. At the August Policy and Planning Committee meeting, we reviewed the proposed evaluations criteria for the execution committee for Dr. Quarles. I'm sorry, executive committee, not execution. My apologies. My apologies. Just got dark.
Thank you.
After that meeting, a copy of the draft evaluation was mailed to each of you to review. Are there any questions or concerns with the proposed evaluation? If no further discussion, is there a motion to approve the KCTCS President Evaluation process, including the rubric for 2025-2026 President's Evaluation?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Whitten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Bolton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt, Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Alrighty. Since the forensic audit was completed, Todd Kilburn was kept us updated on our progress on accomplishing the recommendations provided. Todd, would you please give us an update on the forensic audit?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Last December, we completed the audit, the forensic audit that was conducted by KPMG. We've been providing you quarterly updates on how we've been doing with that and want to make sure that we remain accountable to you on this. So I'll just talk through these one by one. The first was regarding an account 10,001. This is an account that's a pass-through account for actually everything that passes through, that comes into the system and goes out to a college, for example, all comes in through this one account. The auditors said there were 656 accounts that came in and out, and that we should determine whether we should continue to do that. Where could we provide greater clarity around this? We established a working group of people both at the system office and at the colleges. They've concluded their work and they have made recommendations. I've shared some of those initial recommendations with Dr. Quarles, and that's under review. We expect that we will have a completion on that by the next meeting. If you recall, there was 20 years of finances were reviewed by KPMG, although everything balanced to the penny for those 20 years. So I'll just note that. Quarterly review to make sure that the account is regularly balanced. That balancing had been happening annually. And so because of the amount of transactions, KPMG recommended that we try to make sure that we do that more frequently. That work has been implemented. And so that will begin at the end of this month. That'll be the first quarter of the new year. And so there's a group that's working together to evaluate that and provide recommendations to me and make sure that it gets balanced. The general work on how to do that has been completed, and I will receive that first quarterly report after September 30th, after the end of the first quarter. So we continue to move forward on this and make sure that we're tracking this and making sure that we're accountable on that. The second item that was suggested was to take a look at our affiliated foundations. There were 4 recommendations in particular here to make sure that there was compliance with independent documentation, make sure there was a centralized documentation process, to make sure that formal policies and procedures for spending were established, and to create a disbursement request document utilized by the foundations. Dr. Stith has given us an update that there is an annual calendar for documentation needed, and to demonstrate compliance, this has been shared with the peer team. I'll show you a chart in a moment. But they created a documenting spreadsheet regarding the status of each foundation submissions, and the System Office Advancement staff will provide reminders. The requested foundation spending policies, they've asked for the spending policies since those weren't gathered through the forensic audit, and policies will be kept on file. They shared examples to help our foundations in establishing or updating those financial policies or procedures, and they have conducted training with the foundations on stewardship plans. And just to give you a sense, last time we saw a number of these that were still in process. We will continue to provide this with you with this until everything is completed on the list, but these are the documentation areas. And so they have been working to try to make sure that we meet compliance in all of these areas with the forensic audit. On the third area, which was executive compensation, this was being managed by General Counsel Stegall and VP Cantor. There were some recommendations to align our ERP system with the executive compensation procedure, to incorporate new executive roles in that procedure, to conduct annual reviews of market salary scales within pay bands related to executive compensation, to clearly document the basis for executive supplementary allowance determinations, and to ensure timeliness in the signing of executive contracts and adherence to policy-based compensation limits. And so several steps that have been taken. They discussed proposed changes with the college presidents in early February, and new contract templates will be implemented by July 1st of next year, the start of the new contract process. So they've been working on this, and those will be established. That executive compensation market salary scales would be reviewed. This is part of that compensation work that Human Resources has been doing. And so they are doing that market review now with recommendations to be provided to the Board of Regents at the March 2026 meeting. And then they have been working on proposed policy updates to be reviewed and adopted by the Board of Regents. Again, Jessica Stegall and Bridget Cantor have been working on this and plan to bring policy and procedure updates to the Board of Regents at the December 2025 meeting. So that work continues to move forward. On FERPA compliance, this was in relationship to our policies around student privacy, to centralize documentation of any non-compliance instances, to implement a more comprehensive FERPA policy around certain guidelines, and to communicate updates on that centralized documentation. There was a plan laid out that was being led by our Executive Director of Risk Management and Compliance, Mallory Yeaman, and also Jessica in the General Counsel's office. They have been following through on these steps. The policy updates that were intended to be completed by April or August of 25 hit a little bit of snag in the time frame as they were working on that policy back and forth a little bit. We expect that should be completed by the end of this month, and then it will then be communicated on to the system and the colleges. So they're continuing to work on that as well, and we will provide you with an update of that at the next Board of Regents meeting. On the financials, there were some pieces around the general financials. Provide training for relevant finance and accounting team members. And again, that includes across the system, we're covering state requirements and internal policy obligations regarding requisite supporting documentation for journal entry postings. Not all the required documentation had been submitted that they found. To develop internal policy requirements that align with all state requirements for journal entry supporting documentation. To put in some manual controls for evaluating sufficiency of supporting documentation, and then evaluating system capacities to determine where we might be able to catch any accounts receivable for over 6 months. We've been working on those items collectively. In the finance area, we have undergone a review process of all of our policies to align with state requirements and best practices. Because we've been in the process of redoing all of our policies and procedures as a system, we are proposing some new policies and trying to determine which things are actually policy and which things are actually procedure, and trying to make sure that we separate those accordingly and build those. That's currently in the process. And then we are now evaluating and assessing system controls around these accounts receivable issues. We are working with both Mallory in the compliance area, and we've talked a little bit to Dean Dorton about making sure that as we develop some of these policies, we make sure that they align with best practices at colleges and systems nationwide. And then we are implementing controls, both manual and automated, to evaluate the sufficiency of supporting documentation. Once we get through the training, once we have some of those policies updated, then we will be going in and testing to make sure that we're actually meeting those particular requirements. So again, that work continues to move forward. Higher ed innovation, this really had to do with our procurement process and how we were doing around our procurement process. There were several recommendations, and so I've separated it out a little bit because there were several steps to working on this. So recommendation 1 was to develop a detailed checklist utilized for each contract containing the procurement requirements. Procure to pay, which is our procurement department, sometimes abbreviated to P2P. This would be a guide for procurement requirements are for purchases. There may be processes, and that may depend on the size of the procurement process. If we're procuring something like one monitor for a classroom, that's very different than if we're procuring something at a greater level. So they have been developing that. Guidelines for procurement and contract values are now listed in our business procedures. That's established in procedure, which we can do without changing policy. Our procurement guide can incorporate this information, and we're anticipating that completion by spring 2026. I do know that there was beginning training yesterday for employees on the procurement processes. And so informational training will be developed, will also be published on the video library. We're going to try to cast a wide net to try to make sure we include all people in that. And procurement analyst guides for conducting RFPs and drafting contracts have already been developed. So we want to make sure that we're determining exactly how at various levels those things move forward, and how someone who's involved in an RFP, what they know the responsibilities are and how to move forward, so that we're actually checking off the pieces of this checklist. The checklist actually did exist to a certain degree. We're just trying to make sure that we're building in all the correct training and processes that make sure we follow those various pieces of the checklist. Recommendation 2 was to implement mandatory procurement process training for all employees. So we've determined, yes, we would do that. This training is creating these videos. We will also conduct live annual training for travel expenses and pro cards. And then there will be quarterly procurement meetings continuing. Those started last year to discuss various topics, changes, and updates. When something changes in statute, for example, we want to make sure we roll that out to people. And so our procurement office will be continuing to make sure that those quarterly meetings continue to update people. But we are implementing the mandatory procurement process for those people that are involved. Recommendation 3 was a more rigorous documentation process for signature approvals, including printed names, titles, and dates. We would consider this completed because the checklist existed, and we currently use Adobe Sign, which does authenticate and document all of those names, titles, and dates. So those pieces have been implemented, and we consider that recommendation completed and the work done on that. Marketing and PR, this was actually completed fairly early on in the process. These things were already completed. We reported on this at the last board meeting. So that piece is done. On personnel and unit investigation, KPMG recommended that we review and update all policies to address gaps related to personnel. that we consider performing a detailed analysis of health insurance providers to determine selection of insurance plans, to consider implementing a formal review of pay by demographics. As you can see, that work is being done, and establishing a formal pre-hire and onboarding process with proper controls. So our compliance officer has implemented Compliance Bridge, a web platform that will allow us to review policies more regularly. And so we're working on the revision of policies, again, separating some of those things into procedure and into policy and getting the right policies in place. As we were writing this, the RFP process for the Health Medicare Advantage Plan, which was mentioned here, has concluded. We mentioned what that savings was for our employees. Will also provide an estimated $850,000 reduction in expenses per year for the next 2 years. So that process was completed. HR has completed the salary.com online compensation platform. So HR leadership has been trained on this and is working to implement that so that we have the right data as we're looking at employees. And then credential verification exists in our KCTCS administrative policy. When it comes to onboarding, one of the things you'll hear from Dean Dorton tomorrow that they're proposing is to not just test what we're doing, but to provide some counsel in some areas where we can utilize them to determine what are best practices and how can we implement that. Dean Dorton will propose that to you, that we look at the onboarding process as part of the work they're doing to give us some recommendations to make sure that we're looking at all the possibilities and make sure that we have the best process for onboarding that we can. On Pro Cards, someone asked at the audit committee meeting how many Pro Cards we have. We have just under 450 Pro Cards across the system, which both feels like a lot and yet was actually less than I thought it was going to be. We do try to manage our Pro Cards well. So the recommendations from KPMG were to add a flag into the PeopleSoft system that would require budgetary supervisor approval. We determined PeopleSoft, I'll just go over to the steps on that one. PeopleSoft didn't actually have that capacity, but we're working on a process whereby an employee can come in, sign out a Pro Card if they need to, get an approved amount ahead of time. We know it won't be exact, but we'll get an approval prior to the purchase. So we're actually documenting that and making sure of that. I'm sorry, what's that? Large Pro Card transactions would be something probably, I'm not sure we've defined it, but probably $250 or more. So, yeah, that's not large, yeah. So, but we can take a look at that. We'll get some feedback on that. And then to make sure that Pro Card holders understand all receipts and merchant transaction details are accurate before we upload documentation to PeopleSoft. Once it's in the system, it's in the system. We want to make sure that we're uploading that and consider implementing a step plan from initiation of a Pro Card purchase through the payment of the transaction to make sure we're making payments in good faith. Sometimes, occasionally, we don't get an invoice that's correct and we have to send it back several times. We want to make sure we're just staying on top of that and tracking those in the system. So we met with Pro Card coordinators in August to discuss the proposed changes, their sign in and sign out sheets for Pro Card administrators, the video library training, new Pro Card agreements for both Pro Card holder and Pro Card user. Repository created that's accessible for audit. So we want to make sure that we're being transparent in what we're doing, updating our business procedures to include revised process information, and Pro Card quarterly meetings with Pro Card site coordinators. So we want to make sure that we're managing the Pro Cards well, but we will take a look at that one item on what the large is. The next last, sure.
Is there a possibility to upload or update the workflow in PeopleSoft, in PeopleSoft Financials, so that someone could potentially just enter it on the front end as before they make the purchase, it goes to their supervisor, and then they're able to edit the amount as long as it is below the initial amount?
I don't know if that's possible in PeopleSoft. I will take a look at that. I've worked in systems where that actually worked pretty well, but I'm not sure that that's possible, but I'll look into that. Okay. And we'll let you know. As Chris Howes will tell you, I am not the IT guy. So I will find out from them. On the voluntary separation agreements, there were 4 recommendations from KPMG to develop and implement a comprehensive voluntary separation agreement policy, key compliance requirements and standard procedures to be included, clear timelines for that process, to define and document approval processes, standardized eligibility requirements, to conduct adverse impact analyses for each voluntary separation agreement, provide targeted training, and then to implement standard eligibility and payouts. There were some proposed changes to VSA's proposed. Vice President Cantor and General Counsel Stegall are investigating the development of a policy or procedure or general guidelines. They're continuing to work on this, and we will provide further updates for you. The last piece of our forensic audit, which actually wasn't part of what KPMG did, but it was the question that that instigated the forensic audit, was around Fund 99, which is a particular fund and refers to carry forward fund balance as we've talked about it. And so we understood that this question was still outstanding. So we had taken on working with a working group around some of these items. We had a working group that talked about our reserve, which you heard about in March. And we asked them to propose recommendations on fund balances, to provide written policies, to recommend a structure supported by data that would allow implementation of a reserve policy, to recommend systematic evaluation processes, to assure regular alignment with policies and procedures, and then to research and recommend best practices for appropriate fund balance consistent with organizations such as NACUBO. We had input across the system, and then we took a look at where we are with the fund balance. The working group has presented some preliminary recommendations that I've worked with our team. We have proposed an initial draft to Dr. Quarles. We are in continued conversation around that and what that looks like. We intend to have more detail on that at the December meeting, but we wanted to make sure we were very thorough with this, to dig in and not take this lightly. And so we've done a lot of digging into not just Fund 99, but then when we look at fund balance, are there other funds where there's fund balance that sits? We want to make sure we have that definitive number. So we've been very detailed about going through with that. And so we've provided some initial recommendations to Dr. Quarles. So that concludes the update on the forensic audit. Again, we continue. We have a lot of people who have been working on this across the system to try to make sure all these pieces get implemented and to make sure we do the best that we can, again, to be good stewards of our resources.
Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. Very well done. I think we should take maybe a 10-minute break here. Back here in 10 minutes would be great. Thank you. You wanna wait on them or?
Not a problem.
Barry's not chair anymore. He feels like he can sneak off.
Alrighty, we'd like to adjourn, to move forward, excuse me. To comply with the state law and KCTCS Board of Regents required to approve the evaluation process of both the KCTCS System President and KCTCS faculty. Parliamentarian Stegall, would you please present on this action item?
Yes, HB 424, House Bill 424 was passed last legislative session. It requires the board of each governing institution throughout the Commonwealth to approve the evaluation processes for the institution president as well as the faculty. The board evaluation process for the KCTCS president is already a board policy. However, our faculty evaluation process is an administrative policy. The process complies with the requirements of HB 424, so there's no change to the actual faculty evaluation process. However, we just need ratification by this board to approve that evaluation process. So before you today is the resolution to approve that process, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
I think we're on anti-Semitism.
I thought he did 424.
Yeah.
Go back and
Go
yeah.
back. Okay. Thank you.
I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Aye.
Secretary Witten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin, Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz, Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
All right, give me a second. Regent Rabinowitz.
Yes.
All right, motion
Sorry.
passes. All right, we got to jump back up to you want to read that next?
To comply with the state law, KTCS Board of Regents must adopt an anti-Semitism policy. Parliamentarian Stegall, would you please present on this action?
So also in the last legislative session, SJR 55 was passed. It requires institutions to approve a policy addressing anti-Semitism. Our policy, which was provided to you all in the materials, reiterates our prohibition on discrimination and harassment pursuant to KCTCS policies, addresses ways or the way that violations of the anti-Semitism policy can be reported, as well as the reporting requirements for the 16 colleges of any potential violation of the anti-Semitism policy. Again, this was to be compliant with SJR 55. Any questions?
Is there a motion to approve the anti-Semitism policy?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Aye.
Secretary Witten,
Yes.
Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes.
As it's been our practice, the board allows a period of public comment. Shannon, has anyone signed up to speak, please?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this is built for a tall person. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Amy Liebert. I am the department head for history here at Jefferson. I will read off of some notes to try to stay on my 3 minutes. Let me begin by saying how much I truly appreciate the work that this board has done to begin to address the issue of compression here, salary compression. This was an issue before the pandemic, probably before many of you sat on this board, but it has been greatly exacerbated by the spike in inflation in the last several years over which you had no control. We all know this. So while I hope we all agree that this process is not yet complete, it is really encouraging to see how seriously the Board of Regents has taken this issue. But today I would like to take the opportunity to speak on behalf of our adjunct and other contingent faculty, who by the nature of their positions are the least able and likely to be able to come here and advocate for themselves. The salary numbers which I will quote are specific to Jefferson. However, this is a system-wide issue. And Dr. Handy, I assure you, I am not just trying to pick on Jefferson. These are just the numbers from my personal experience. I first started teaching at Jefferson in January of 2013, about 8 days after I had moved here in my 1993 4Runner, full of my stuff directly after I finished my master's degree. At that time, the stipend for a single class was $1,691. It was not much, but for someone who had just completed their master's, I was happy for the opportunity. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, inflation from January 2013 to January 2025 has been 41%. To even keep up with inflation, then, our adjuncts should currently be making $2,384 per class. Instead, here at Jefferson, it is $1,965. Now, that has gone up over time, and I really do appreciate Dr. Handy's advocacy on that. But effectively, in terms of cost of living, they are now losing almost $300 per class. And I can say anecdotally, from having lived in Louisville for 12 years, it is amazing how the cost of living here has gone up. In the fall of 2013, the college gave me another opportunity. I was made a full-time temporary employee. The salary for this at that time per semester for 5 classes was $15,600 or $31,200 a year. Not a huge sum, but at that time, it allowed me to live while I was entering my chosen field. I could pursue my passion, I could be with our students on campus 4 to 5 days a week, and I could get my resume started. I was very appreciative for that opportunity. Today, to my knowledge, and I've been trying to check this, but from what I know other people have been paid here in the last year, that salary remains where it was 12 years ago. This is not livable, and it is especially hard when you realize that the minimum qualifications to teach here are to have a master's degree. As a department head, I have the pleasure to work with many of our contingent faculty. They are passionate about their subject matter and about working with our students. But more and more, I am having really hard conversations where people tell me things like, I literally cannot justify the gas to come teach in person anymore.
Your 3 minutes are up.
I have made my point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Fortunately, we are ahead of schedule. I think we can adjourn for the day.
Go on, let's hit a few more.
You want to do some more?
Yes, do
Okay.
some.
Right here. Transfer. Well, that's not in my. It's not in my system. Okay.
Advance.
Got it. Attention, please. Dr. Megan Stiff, Chief Advancement Officer, would you please present this agenda item of philanthropy?
That one next.
Okay.
Yes, okay, thanks. Thank you for the opportunity to brief you on the wonderful results that we have to share regarding giving across the KCTCS system for the fiscal year that just concluded. We've got a slide to show you here, our gifts received by college with some history behind that, okay. Great, I got the technology working. There we go. So as you see here, we have had a very solid year in giving for FY25. It is down slightly from the year before. That was driven by 2 key factors. There were 2 larger gifts that are processed through the KCTCS Foundation, one being a partnership with Evolve 502, as well as a capital campaign for Elizabethtown Community and Technical College that were going on last year, and we didn't expect to sustain those same levels of support into the year that just concluded. For those who are newer to the board, you also might be wondering what happened in FY21. 15 million of that $30 million total came from Mackenzie Scott, who made a significant gift to our friends at West Kentucky. So we hope she's listening today. We'd love to hear from her again. But we are very proud of these results. Again, acknowledging that there are more strains on donors' income and that the choice to give and entrust us with their hard-earned dollars is more precious than ever. I also want to say too, shout outs to our friends at Ashland, Gateway, Hopkinsville, Jefferson, and Sky. They all saw increases in giving, and especially want to thank Don and his team for their hospitality as we visit Jefferson. As you might have seen on the tour, we've gotten to see the impact that generosity from their community has made in projects like their renovations and expansions, and it is just so exciting to see what the community is making possible here at Jefferson. So looking beyond those numbers, those are important for us to monitor, but we really do like to get deeper to see what types of relationships or growth is driving giving across the system. So as you see here, these are the sources of our contributions. Perhaps the most exciting thing I can share with you is that our alumni giving is up significantly from the prior year, up over $450,000. And this is a sustained trend that we've been seeing the last several years. The number of alumni gifts is up over 140% over the last 5 years, and dollars given during that same period is up over 300%. So we think a big driver of this is making it easier for alumni to give, especially through our recurring online giving portal, which we're continuing to enhance and offering opportunities like our Giving Day. We've seen growth in this individual donor sector, and that is critical for us because the majority of gifts, although you might see a lot of flashy check presentations with corporate giving or foundations, which are certainly critical, as you see here, really the majority of gifts across the country come from individual donors. Often, though, those are the hardest donors to reach, which is why sometimes they can be neglected by organizations in their fundraising strategy. So we really have been focused and targeted in making sure that KCTCS is the philanthropic option of choice for every Kentuckian. And by doing that, making sure we have ways for anyone to give, no matter their interests or ability. So it looks like based on those results that we are seeing our strategies be effective in engaging individual donors. We did see some declines. When you look at those overall numbers, those were driven primarily in declines from corporate giving as well as declines in foundation giving. And those hold with national trends. We haven't seen, obviously, we have a few more months left in 2025, so we don't know what the data in terms of national philanthropy will look like this year. But overall, corporations are becoming much more focused and strategic with their corporate giving, and foundations, with a lot of the uncertainty at the federal level around grants, refocus some of their giving priorities to help fill in those gaps. So we anticipated some of those declines impacting us, but they still remain a critical part of our strategy as well. This slide shows how our donors choose to support their institutions by college and by purpose. As you see here, I think what is most exciting is the increase that we've seen steadily in gifts to financial aid. Our students depend on scholarships as well as emergency funds, making sure that we have resources to support them at every step of their academic journey. And another note is the increase that we've seen in unrestricted giving. That was up not majorly, but about $40,000 over the prior year for that total of around $800,000. And I think that's significant because that is a barometer of trust. That every dollar that is given to be unrestricted means that the donor trusts us to use those funds where it is needed most. So again, we look at all of these categories. It's important to make sure that we have philanthropic resources for every area of the institution, but those are a couple that we keep a very close eye on to make sure ultimately that our students are supported and donors are trusting us to accomplish their intent with their funds. I'm also excited to report to you that we have increased our number of donors who are giving to the college. When you think about over 3,500 donors, and actually a lot of these numbers have continued to increase since we ran these reports, this really shows, again, tremendous trust and belief in the mission of each of our colleges and the system overall. When you peel back the layers, we've had over 9,000 gifts. So I want to say thank you to all of the advancement staff across all the colleges. We're small but mighty teams. And if we were a college on our own, we'd be like right in the middle of the pack if each of those donors was a student. All of this work is being done by about 50 people across the system. So it really is tremendous to make sure that each of those gifts is able to be made efficiently, effectively, and end up impacting the area that the donor has chosen. So it is really encouraging not only to see donors engaging with us in this way, but that growth in more people connecting with the system and more people finding that they can make a difference in whatever way they choose through our work. So just to wrap up with a few more key metrics, so I'm sorry that we're getting into the art and data or the science side of the art and science of fundraising today. It is very data heavy as we wrap up the fiscal year, but just thought you should see some of the numbers that we're looking at, again, to take those big numbers and really break them down to understand how our strategies and tactics are working. And this just shows things like the number of first-time donors. We had over 1,400 donors choose to connect with KCTCS for the first time, or at least the first time we can tell in recent history since our database was established. We also brought back over 400 donors. And as you see, the retention of our donors is so critical because we were able to retain over $11 million in giving by building relationships with donors and continuing to keep them coming back to us. That retention rate of 45% is something we look at closely. That might not sound like, don't you want to be 100%? Yes, but this 45% is right at the national average. It is a focus for us to continue to try to push and be better than anybody, but that is a very solid place to be. And again, is why we're focused on trying to engage with more donors so we can continue to work with them across the years and hopefully turn that into more endowed gifts, as you see at the bottom. We had over $2 million in endowed revenue. And endowments are so critical to us because as economic trends change, as colleges need to be innovative and flexible, endowments provide that assurance that there will be funding there for key priorities. So again, we want to make sure that we have solutions for donors at every stage of their journey with us, beginning from maybe that first time you give online through a giving day, all the way towards that planned gift, that legacy gift, that endowment. So this just shows some of the metrics we're using to make sure we are strategic at all of those points. It is a little too early to know how FY26 is looking, but again, just wanted you to see that we do forecast ahead. We're making comparisons to past years, and we are really excited to make FY26 our best year yet. So giving you a little bit more of the art behind fundraising and the people who make it all happen, I wanted to stop and thank our employees. Again, those thousands of donors, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle who they are and where they're coming from. But we had, as you see here, 37% of all gifts made came from employees across KCTCS. Our faculty and staff give back in so many ways, and I think it is exceptional to see that 672 employees chose to give even more by giving a financial gift. And these are just some examples of ways that our teammates from Sky and Gateway have engaged with their employees through different campaigns, which shows that a commitment to philanthropy and that culture of giving really starts at the top with leadership. And it's not something you can do one time. It really is that steady, continual culture that is built. And I just give so much credit to the teams at those colleges who allow us to amplify the work of our small but mighty team in advancement by encouraging fundraising across their institutions and finding new and innovative ways to engage their employees and their communities. These are just a few of the many amazing gifts that we've seen come in the last few months since we last met. We are excited to see not only gifts coming in, but the commitment our colleges have to engaging and stewarding those donors. So again, it's not just one gift, but it's a chance to see the impact a donor has made firsthand. A great example of that is with West Kentucky, and they have been doing a lot to make sure they're bringing together their scholarship donors as well as their recipients so they can build connections, build relationships, and be part of each other's shared success. Maysville also received a large gift from an estate of Charles Lee Smith, which will start a new scholarship fund. And Gateway had several wonderful gifts, as you see here, one for their new dual credit line worker program, which it sounds like is already at capacity, which is exciting, and a gift for a new medical lab tech program from St. Elizabeth Healthcare. BCTC also has formed a very important partnership with United Way of the Bluegrass. This is benefiting their food pantry as well as GED testing and the delivery of a new direct support professional certification, which allows career skills for those with disabilities. And then the ECTC Foundation held an Ungala, which is a very laid-back event, the exact opposite of a formal gala, including singing presidents. So if you ever want to have dirt on one of your KCTCS presidents, feel free to come to Elizabethtown next year. That raised $23,000 for a student success circle, which brings donors together to pool their funds and make grants back out to student success initiatives, as well as actually $15,000 had an increase to that for near completer scholarships to help students who were close to being able to finish their degree, but just needing a little bit of help to get across the finish line to complete debt-free. And then again, I know we've talked a lot about our friends from the Public Service Commission, but wanted to give them a spotlight today. This is one of the largest scholarships we have now in the system, and it is benefiting the largest number of colleges that we have in KCTCS. So a great example of how we can be that destination for philanthropy that can impact multiple colleges or the entire state, and have a very tangible impact in workforce development and on students' lives. So we thank them for their generosity and look forward to working together for many years to come. So what's ahead for advancement this year? It's going to have some data. It's always going to have data if it involves me. So we are doing a project to dig even deeper into our data, segment our donors more strategically, so we know how to spend our time and resources connecting with them in ways that are going to be meaningful. We'll also be doing more around endowments and planned giving, as well as continuing the momentum we have with alumni. We have a new tool to help identify where our alumni are working, how to reach out to them, help tell their stories. So we not only can leverage that from a fundraising perspective, but also use those connections in helping our students with workforce decisions or career transitions and telling those stories through spotlights to attract more students to KCTCS. We're going through an online giving conversion, as well as coordinating with all of our scholarship contacts at the colleges to make our scholarship processes as smooth as possible, ultimately to make sure we're expediting awards and getting those out effectively to students who need them. So a lot of continuing to build our capacity. There is a lot of procedure and behind the scenes work that it takes to do this exciting and impactful work, but we are looking forward to broadening the space of support and finding new ways to engage with donors that maybe they hadn't considered before. So this, I always have to make an ask. Sorry, you don't have to get your wallets out unless you want to. But this is an example of one of those projects we undertook in working with system marketing to create graphics around Make a Will Month. So I thought this would be just a good, helpful educational tip for all of you that, as you have folks in your lives or that are connected to KCTCS that might be thinking about needing to revise their estate plans. Just because it's September doesn't mean you can't go back and revise your plans to include KCTCS or one of our colleges in those plans. So it's a great example of communication that we're doing more year-round to help educate donors on their options and make sure that KCTCS is at the forefront of their mind when they're ready to make those decisions. So as we head into the end of the year, this is our peak of event season. If you want to go to a golf scramble, come see us. We have lots of them. It's gala season. You see here several of these different events that we would love to see you at. If you would like to learn more about planned giving and making those financial plans, also doing a lot of educational events over the coming months. So please come connect with us at any of these events. We would love to have you. And I know you're all anxiously awaiting for April. Giving Day is going to be April 22nd. It was that or tax day. So we thought that date would be better. So feel free, if you'd like to make a donation before then, get a jump on that tax deduction. We would love to talk with you, but we will have a lot more detail about plans for Giving Day as we get closer, but we do have a date on the calendar. Are there any questions for me or anything you would like to add?
Just want to say thank you, Dr. Stith. On top of all this, emphasis on compliance across the systems, we appreciate that. And back to the wills and estate. When I was practicing estate planning, I'd always tell folks that the next best thing to having your own will is to be in somebody else's. And so we want to make sure that that's part of the ask. And, you know, and the universities are very good at this. And so I think that that should be an emphasis for us as well. But if you don't mind, you've shared with PLT before kind of the state of giving nationally right now. Can you just give us a few comments about what you're seeing nationally?
Yeah, nationally, there is increase in philanthropy, but there are fewer donors giving larger gifts. So again, that is why it's so meaningful that we're seeing increase in donor activity across KCTCS. We are also seeing a higher use of tools like donor advised funds, which if anyone's listening and would love to recommend a grant from their donor advised fund to KCTCS, we can also do that. Donor advised funds are like charitable savings accounts where you can make a gift and receive your tax deduction at that time and then recommend grants to beneficiary organizations later in the process. So that means we have to also be communicating to folks that influence those decisions and be active in that space as well. So our country is still incredibly generous. Our state and communities, obviously, through these numbers that you're seeing, believe in and support our mission, but it means that we have to be even more flexible and adaptable to understand what donors are expecting as they see and have different options in their giving, making sure that we're as competitive as possible to, again, be that first choice when somebody wants to make a difference in their community. We want them to think of us.
Just a comment on the new corporate giving threshold.
Yes, yes. So there will be changes to the tax code coming through the implementation of the Big Beautiful Bill starting in January. So that will change the deductibility incentives that companies have to write off their charitable gifts. So it doesn't mean that there won't be corporate philanthropy. It just means we have to, again, be even more strategic in making sure we explore how we align our mission and the work that companies want to be able to accomplish. But that is a challenge we're anticipating and think that there will be potentially decreases in corporate giving nationally starting in the new year. I know y'all wanted to talk about tax law today, right? Great questions. Anything else? All right.
House, Vice President of Technology Solutions, will you please share the Technology Solutions annual report with us?
Thank you, Chair Hamilton, and good afternoon, everyone. Shannon's handing out the Technology Solutions Annual Report, and I'm going to spend just a few minutes highlighting items from the annual report today. And I'll start by saying that the system had a really good year with technology last year. We enhanced the information security across the system. We upgraded some of our core network infrastructure, including our Wi-Fi networks. We supported increased efficiencies by digitizing a lot of our paper-based processes. We introduced new technologies to better support our students and the student experience with technologies. And we also hosted an AI summit last year. And you can find those highlights and many more in the annual report that was just handed out. I always like to highlight some of the technology metrics that we capture each year, and I'll just touch on a few of these from this slide. MyPath is our internal portal, and every month we see nearly 4 million visitors to MyPath. Last year, we had over 160 million emails sent, read, and received. And one of my favorite metrics that Dr. Quarles referenced earlier today, last year as a system, we hosted over 180,000 Teams meetings. That's a lot of Microsoft Teams meetings for 1 year. We see over 1.6 million sign-ins every single day to KCTCS applications. That's a lot of users accessing our systems, a lot of faculty, a lot of staff, a lot of students. And from a security perspective, last year we blocked over 26 million emails before they were even delivered to our users' inboxes. And again, these numbers just highlight the breadth and depth of the technology environment at KCTCS. We implemented several security enhancements last year, starting with an incident response plan. And the cybersecurity team, in partnership with Dean Dorton, worked to develop a new KCTCS incident response plan that was designed to provide clear and step-by-step guidance for effectively containing and controlling security incidents. We implemented a centralized model for applying Microsoft security patches last year, and this helped reduce the administrative overhead of applying those patches across the system. And it's also helped us have a much better security posture moving forward. We completed a comprehensive security assessment with Microsoft last year, and after the assessment, Microsoft ranked KCTCS as one of the top performing organizations where they have completed the assessment. We replaced a lot of computers last year across the system, and I'll touch on that just a bit more in a moment. A new student homepage was launched last year that provides financial and advising and class information to our students. And the new homepage redesigned, it was based on feedback directly from our colleges and from our students. We had the System Office Technology team out at ECTC this week, and we met and talked with students and heard directly from them, and they provided a lot of positive feedback on the new student homepage. I mentioned we upgraded our Wi-Fi network last year, and we worked with our colleges to transition their wireless networks to Juniper's new AI-driven cloud architecture. This upgrade included replacing over 2,800 Wi-Fi access points across the system, and the new Wi-Fi system uses AI-driven insights to help us better track issues and resolve issues more quickly. And what we've seen is it's really improved the Wi-Fi experience for our users across all our colleges. Working with HR, we transitioned from a paper-based process for enrollment, new employee onboarding enrollment process. And this will provide a better onboarding experience for our new employees going forward. We also worked with our colleges to digitize over 25 paper-based processes, including travel request approvals and other internal forms. You've probably heard me talk about Kentucky Wired before, and last year we finally completed the transition of all of our sites and all of our colleges to the Kentucky Wired network. And just as a quick review, the Kentucky Wired network is a middle-mile project connecting government agencies and all the higher education institutions in Kentucky to the internet. The onboarding to Kentucky Wired has provided increased bandwidth and increased reliability for our colleges. I mentioned we also hosted an AI week last year that we saw several hundred faculty and staff attend, and the AI week sessions were designed to help promote AI literacy and AI use across the system. I want to certainly take a moment to highlight the good things that our colleges are doing with technology. We have an amazing team of technology professionals, not just at the system office, but at our colleges as well. And last year, Microsoft announced that Windows 10 was going to be end of life this year in 2025. Actually, it's coming up in October. And to prepare for this change, our technology teams at our colleges replaced over 21,000 computers last year. And that's a ton of computers to replace in a year. Other highlights from our colleges include Big Sandy technology staff installing new digital signage across their campus buildings, Gateway establishing a mentorship program for their CIT students, Madisonville partnering with the Fire Commission to upgrade its network infrastructure. And again, you can find highlights from every college in the annual report. As we look forward to this fiscal year, I want to highlight just a few of the key enterprise projects that we either have planned or that are already underway. The first project I want to touch on is the Student Lifecycle Management Project, and this is a 24-month project being led by our System Office PMO with a cross-functional team representing all colleges. The goal of this project is to move from a disparate and disjointed student support technology environment to a more holistic experience for our faculty, staff, and students. The project is being implemented in 3 phases, with phase 1 scheduled to be completed this December, and the first modules being launched and going live this December. We'll also be working to improve the faculty experience by streamlining and automating the grade export process from Blackboard into PeopleSoft. We're planning several more cybersecurity enhancements this year. We'll be conducting a ransomware tabletop exercise this fall to identify gaps in our response plans and enhance our readiness. We're also working with an external partner to implement 24/7 security as a service or SOC service monitoring. And this will provide enhanced information security monitoring for all of our colleges. We'll be performing business continuity testing this fall, and we'll include our mission critical systems in that testing, and that includes our PeopleSoft SIS, our PeopleSoft HR systems, and our PeopleSoft financial systems. We'll be procuring and implementing a new enterprise IT service management platform this year, and this will provide a unified help desk system for all of our colleges and allow for better reporting and training of technology issues across the system. This project will start in 2026, and we hope to have it completed in 2027. The current data warehouse tool that we call DSS at KCTCS has served us well for many years. However, Oracle announced that the current DSS platform would be end of life in 2027. That's prompted us to start the search for a new analytics platform. We're assessing future needs now and requirements in preparation for an RFP later this fall. Selection and implementation of the new platform will start in 2026. Dr. Neal is going to be sharing an update on AI tomorrow, but I do want to share just a few ways that we're supporting AI across the system. We established the AI Steering Committee this year to help guide the discussion of AI and adoption. And the steering committee is really focused on 3 key areas. First, how do we use AI to be more efficient as a system? Second, how do we integrate AI skills into our curriculum? And third, how do we provide clear guidance to our faculty and our staff and our students around the use of AI? And so to support these 3 focus areas and to support AI literacy, we established the AI Hub at KCTCS. And the AI Hub is a portal, a centralized portal for all things artificial intelligence. The Hub includes information on AI tools currently available to employees, news and events related to AI, and guidance on the usage of AI tools. Speaking of AI tools, last year we made Microsoft Copilot available to all faculty, staff, and students. And Microsoft Copilot is the generative AI tool that we have identified as the AI tool of choice at KCTCS. And we did that because we know that data entered into Microsoft Copilot will not be used by Microsoft to train their model or other AI models. And again, Microsoft Copilot is available for free to all faculty, staff, and students. So in closing, there's a lot of hype around AI right now, and there's a lot of noise around AI, and I'm sure you hear it and see it every day, and we certainly do in the technology industry. And so our goal is to cut through the noise, cut through the hype around AI. And as we look forward, we want to identify initiatives that provide real value and real benefit to our faculty, staff, and students with the use of AI in mind. And with that, Chair Humpton, that is the Technology Solutions Update.
Thank you.
As a general comment to say thank you for you and your team, but also those across the system that are serving on implementation teams as well. We have a lot of technology that will soon become not supported or obsolescent in the coming years. And so we're implementing some very high level things. And there's a lot of folks putting in an additional 10 hours a week in some cases just to check and make sure that the implementation is going as smoothly as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, probably next. Okay.
Jesse, Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development, would you please present your agenda item today?
Thank you, Chair Hamilton. We have a little bit of like an airplane situation back there. It's pretty narrow for Chris and I to come in and out at the same time. So I'm excited to share our workforce and economic development report with you all this afternoon. I'll start by providing a recap of our statewide workforce partnerships. In my last report, I mentioned that we were really focused on strengthening our relationship with economic development, not just with our colleagues at the Cabinet for Economic Development, ensuring that trains incentives are part of the conversation when companies are considering locating in Kentucky, but also at a local level with our Kentucky Association of Economic Developers. And so we embarked on developing an event series that would be both for workforce professionals as well as local economic developers. There is a lot of turnover in the economic development profession, as you all might imagine, as up and coming rising stars work with these companies who are newly locating. Very frequently, they end up employed by those companies. And so with that in mind, while we have very strong relationships at the local level, seeing new professionals come into these roles, it's really imperative that we maintain connectivity from a statewide standpoint. And so their executive director and I, or I'm sorry, she's the president and CEO, Terry Bradshaw, we worked together to create an event that would look beyond the idea of coming to the table together just with numbers. When companies are considering locating, traditionally we come forward and we say, here's who's in the talent pipeline in our community, really taking it beyond the quantitative data to showcase collaboration and partnership. We were excited to have both Madisonville and Bluegrass host these events over the summer. We had 2 separate events hoping to increase access for those on both the eastern and western borders of the state. And we had more than 130 attendees at these events. So they were day-long events. We had cabinet secretaries, C-suite individuals from companies in Kentucky who have been here for quite some time, newly located companies and site selectors all come and share their perception on what makes or breaks a deal when workforce practitioners and economic developers come together to sell their communities. So we were excited by this turnout, but this is just the beginning of how we can begin working more effectively and more strategically together at a state level. And in that same vein of thought, we continue to be a core partner for the statewide workforce and talent team. This initiative, the SWAT initiative, as we call it, is an effort to create a unified business service approach to serving not just companies considering Kentucky, but also those who are already located here. This is important because navigating the landscape of economic and workforce assets is very cumbersome and complicated. I mentioned that in board orientation this morning. There are more than 300 training providers alone in Kentucky, and that doesn't even begin to take into account our career centers, our local nonprofits who are engaged in workforce and economic development, our professionals within the cabinet. You start to do the math, and now you're talking about thousands of assets that companies need to navigate. The SWAT initiative creates an approach whereby no matter who you talk to, whether it's someone at KCTCS or at the Economic and Labor Cabinet or at a local nonprofit, we are going to coordinate, collaborate, and come together to bring all solutions to these companies in one easy access approach. Dr. Quarles recently testified with several other key leaders on this effort, and it's gaining traction in the Commonwealth, not just at a state level, but locally. We hosted more than 70 workforce professionals over the summer at KCTCS, and we now have dozens of employer prototypes happening across the state. One of these is with MI2, which is the Metals Innovation Initiative. And the goal here is how can we bring these assets together to create a statewide plan for Kentucky's metals industry. So again, this is more than just state coordination. This is kind of that double-sided arrow between our local assets, our regional strategies, and state strategies to put Kentucky at the top of the map when it comes to not just attracting business, but sustaining business. We have also added 3 additional Education First employers. I'm so sorry, that is 2. The MI2 logo there is for our SWAT initiative. Madisonville and Bluegrass have brought on new Education First employers. You guys will recall that this is our brand identity for companies who are providing good jobs with good wages, tuition benefits, and flexible scheduling. This is a talent attraction strategy for companies, but also a student attraction strategy for us, in that we can help recruit students who are already working at these companies with the benefits on the table. But it's also a retention strategy for us in ensuring that our students are connected to these good jobs at the 60 some odd employers within that portfolio. Now, we were flexible today and my report was moved up. Tomorrow, you are going to hear from Gina Embry. You're going to see her name in a later slide. She's a workforce program coordinator here at Jefferson. And while you can see why these partnerships at a state scale are important, what happens at the local level is really what drives progress forward. So she's going to be sharing the impact of the partnership here with Goodwill. Though a statewide partner, again, they are driving really significant progress in serving students here locally. So Gina will join our Dr. Cobb, who is the Vice President of Academic Affairs here at Jefferson. Gina will join her tomorrow to talk you through this slide. If any of you watch the CBS Evening News religiously like I do, I don't know how you feel about the format change. I'm still on the fence about it. 2 nights ago, they provided a jobs report for new grads and they used handshake data. I'm so proud that we have continued to advance our effort to ensure that all of our students have access to Handshake across the system. Every single Fortune 500 company is on Handshake. There are 20 million student and alumni users on Handshake and more than 1 million US companies. It is so important that employers have a specific place to source entry-level talent, and Handshake is that place. It is the most widely used platform. We are really trying to increase adoption across the system from a student standpoint, and our team hosted a training back in the summer, again at Bluegrass. Bluegrass, thank you, Dr. Feeney. You have hosted quite a few events for us in the last several months, and that was attended by Handshake leads across the system. We've got some new support through Handshake in that they are implementing an employment data tracking system that's going to allow us to better understand where our current students who are using Handshake are working and where our alumni go if they have secured employment through this platform. So we're really looking at integration strategies, stronger marketing approaches to ensure that Handshake is widely known to all of our students. And that requires everybody. It can't just be an email or a flyer. It requires that our faculty talk about it, that maybe an extra credit point or 2 is given in a course for creation of a Handshake profile. I'm always so proud when I'm on campuses and I see Handshake flyers in the bathrooms and in the common areas and in the food pantries. It's just incredibly important that our students understand that they have this tool available to them to access opportunity. The unemployment rate, as you all have probably seen for new graduates, is lower than it's been since the recession. And we are seeing that rate of who has been long-term unemployed more than 6 months in that entry-level cohort at the highest it's been in quite some time. So we want to be really sure that our students are accessing these opportunities while they're with us. We have just created, Kyla Smithers has created a dashboard for continuous improvement where we are able to see our Handshake utilization in real time. We are also continuing to advance our employer asset map or external engagement asset map. We're working on rebranding this. Not a lot of people seem to understand the asset map terminology, but what this is an employer partnership dashboard. I think when we sought out on this scope of work, we were mapping our employer assets. We have that map in place. We know that we've got somewhere between 2,600 and 3,000 partnerships. That number's lower than what I reported to you last month, and that's a good thing. And the reason why, these partnerships, you don't just sign a partnership and it's in perpetuity, right? Most of the partnerships have goals. They have timelines. And when you meet those goals, the timeline closes out. You might not have a customized training program or project going on with a college every single year. And so knowing that we're keeping up with the data, seeing this number fluctuate is telling us that this is becoming part of our institutional culture to understand where we stand actively and in the moment with the employers that we're working with to advance student opportunities. So you can see that depth of partnership snapshot there. Those are some of the top activities that we're tracking. You can see that we've got over 500 employers who are offering tuition assistance support. That's data pulled directly through Business Office data upload. And we only have 57 Education First employers right now. So we've got over 500 potential targets where we can amplify the impact of companies who are providing that tuition assistance. We really want to continue advancing this work in a way that is a lighter lift than it has been. This has been a really significant effort on the part of the colleges to begin tracking partnerships that we've never tracked in this holistic approach. And so we're really trying to narrow in on the most important elements of partnership that impact student opportunities. And we're trying to figure out how this data can be more actionable on a day-to-day basis. We've got a couple really exciting wins that I just wanted to share quickly with you all. At Owensboro, they have identified more than 20 potential new leads for Workforce Solutions customized training projects that were already engaged partners within academic programs. At Madisonville, they were able to identify an employer who was currently in the pipeline for a customized training project, had been providing a really significant donation annually to their food pantry, and that Workforce Solutions professional was able to go into that meeting knowing that information. This data allows us to be coordinated, professional, and effective in closing the deal with companies by better understanding all of our touch points and identifying gaps. So all of this was based on a results-based accountability approach. The first question within that approach is, how much are we doing? We can't deepen relationships if we don't know what we're doing and who we're doing it with. The next layer to that kind of approach is, how well are we doing it? This year, with the support of PLT and the college leadership teams and Dr. Quarles, we embarked on a first ever system-wide employer partnership survey. This wasn't necessarily a survey about how companies felt about hiring our graduates or serving on an advisory committee or customized training. We asked those questions separately, but this was holistic in nature. How do they feel about working with us as a linked arm partnership to building a bridge between education and labor market opportunities? And I am very proud to say, although our response rate was not as great as I'd like it to be, it never is with surveys, but of the respondents, 90% of employers said that they were satisfied or very satisfied with KCTCS efforts to develop an industry-ready workforce. This is double the national benchmark of 45%. And we know that because we used a survey that was developed by Harvard and the American Association of Community Colleges. So I'm proud of the way employers perceive us as partners in creating workforce and talent development solutions. We also asked them how do they feel about specific opportunities? And many said they didn't know about opportunities that we'd love for them to engage with us in, like program advisory committees or offering work-based learning. So now, as a result of this survey, we're able to specifically target individual companies who said they weren't so sure about these types of activities and explain to them what the value proposition would be for them, and more importantly, how it can impact our students to secure high-quality jobs at their companies where they have openings. I want to back up for just a second. We also received incredible qualitative feedback about the work happening at the colleges. So here, just a shout out to Ashland. They had a very high response rate. Dr. Ferguson, I know, was a big supporter of this work, and even on his own sent some of these communications out to employers that they work with. And this company said, we could not be more satisfied with the partnership and how they create and develop trainings to meet our workforce needs. So it really shows how we're able to step to the table and be customized in those solutions. You have in front of you your Workforce Annual Impact Report. This is a publication that we produce and provide to you every September. It takes us a little bit to close out the numbers at the end of the fiscal year. It is, I think, a really amazing recap of the impact, both quantitative and qualitative, that our colleges have in their communities. And I want to thank Kyla Smithers. We have not had someone in this marketing position for quite some time. She's our data and technology solution specialist. And she has just taken this on and produced what I think is a very high quality product that really shows the impact of the work at the colleges and at a system level. So we're excited to see that the number of total trades projects continue to grow year over year. We have seen more than $7 million, 7.5 million saved for Kentucky companies. And I do want to just take a moment to look at that projected head count. I'm always going to give you all the percent change, even when it's negative. I don't like to see the negative numbers there. But I'm proud that the repeat company percentage continues to increase. We have solutions in play to focus on new companies and expanding the portfolio with the staffing that we have available. But that projected head count, that's a difficult metric to understand because that is tracked. Headcount could be that I am enrolled in 4 or 5 different courses, and the way in which we bundle those courses is different. So I don't want you all to see that and think that companies are training less people. It may be that the way we are choosing to package those trainings based on the company need is that instead of breaking a Leadership 101 into 5 modules, we're bundling it as one enrollment. And then again here, just to show you all the feedback that we're getting on our trains end of project reports, I think it's important to call out our staff at the colleges who are doing such an amazing job in supporting these projects. You'll see our overall satisfaction rating there is 4.75. Gina Embry is mentioned here. Mara Mabry is mentioned here. Mr. Tiller and Mr. Hicks at the Jefferson Carrollton campus. These are the individuals who continue to show up as partners to these companies. They're not thought of as external representatives of the community college. They are thought of as part of the HR team and part of the strategy. So this work would not be possible without their passion and dedication and commitment to really being a partner. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we are continuing to grow our scope of impact with new economic development projects in Kentucky. And we have had 4 major projects that we've been a part of, more than 2,000 prospective new jobs in Kentucky. And we've supported 6 ongoing economic development projects in collaboration with the Cabinet for Economic Development. That's upskilling for more than 1,300 new jobs in Kentucky. Blue Oval SK continues to be an example of one of the deepest investments our state has made in a company and in recognizing the community college system and Elizabethtown as the backbone of that talent pipeline there locally. And so they have taught over 600 classes at the Elizabethtown facility. More than 1,600 Blue Oval SK students have gone through and 89 unique instructors that they're partnered with to deliver that training. Mr. Chair, that's my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Just a general comment that, workforce is the three-legged stool of KCTCS, transfer, technical trade, and workforce components towards our state's needs. But a comment on the SWAT initiative, just a reminder, this is our ability to have a one-stop shop for any company that's either existing, retaining or expanding or locating to Kentucky so that we have a coordinated effort. So it doesn't matter if it's a mom and pop or a very large employer, that they're aware of all the resources we have when it comes to economic development in our state. So this is our participation, Secretary Knoll, Secretary Link, the Kentucky Chamber with Ashley Watts, Goodwill, and now K-12 was going to be brought into this conversation. And so we anticipate perhaps something this next session that may formalize this work with this group. And speaking of which, you saw the trains funding. We exhaust every single dollar of that. And we supplemented this last couple of years with a $2 million infusion. And so we'll be advocating for more of that. That's oftentimes perhaps one of the more misunderstood funding sources we have with the General Assembly, but it's most closely connected to workforce needs. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Neal, would you please provide an update to these agenda items? Enrollment report, certificate of programs, approvals, program suspensions, artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hamilton and board members. Now, folks, don't get too excited, but I think I'm the last presentation before you get to go have a fun evening tonight. But I do want you to calm down, calm down. But I do want you to get excited about what I'm about to share with you. I've got a few updates for you. You've heard a little bit about enrollment. We're gonna give you an enrollment update, but the part I really want you to get excited about is the action item. So be ready to see who can raise their hand or make the motion first to ratify credentials of our students who've earned them in the time frame that I'll show you. So let's get into it. Enrollment report. You've heard a couple of reports for enrollment. When we pull this data, which we have to have this data submitted to you for the board reports several weeks, typically in advance, you can see we were up by a certain amount there. If you were to look at the enrollment today, which Alicia, in our associate VP of our organizational research and planning and analysis department, who does amazing work with all of our data, the numbers have changed even better today. What ends up happening, and I'll show you in just a minute, is that enrollment continues all the way from March 1st that we're enrolling students for the summer and the fall semester, all the way through about October 1st when our second bi-term classes start. So it can change day to day throughout the summer, throughout the early fall, throughout the mid-fall. So we are very excited about what we're seeing in enrollment across our system, both in headcount, which is typically the public number that a lot of people want to ask about. How many different individuals are you serving? But we also look at FTE, which takes into account how many credit hours those students are taking. There's a lot of analysis that goes on there, but we're seeing very good trends all across the board. You can see this is a tracking tool that we do use. If yellow is on top, that's this fall. And that means a good thing because it means our enrollment's higher this fall than last fall. Which is blue. So as you get further along in the semester, you can see that the yellow is staying on top and is getting bigger. So that's a really good sign. And then again, we continue to track enrollment all the way out until the second bi-term courses start, which is our second 8 weeks of the fall semester, which is around the beginning of October. Any questions on enrollment? Now, these numbers that I share with you are the enrollments in our degrees or our credit-bearing courses, your traditional technical transfer-bound programs. Again, we've talked to you over the years. We talked to our new board members this morning. There are so many other areas that Jesse was talking about and others where we serve the Commonwealth. We serve tens of thousands of more folks that don't ever show up in these numbers because they're not taking a 4-credit class. But in our adult education programs, GED preparation, customized training courses that Jesse was talking about, we just have such a wide variety of service arms. But that's typically the kind of, when they say, what's your enrollment, that's typically what they're talking about right there. So the other thing that we report out on at board meetings is certificate and program approval. As you might imagine, certificates and programs, we bring them on to be responsive to industry changes, whether it's a new industry coming to town or new technology that's changing within our existing industry. We can request bringing on new certificates, new programs that are already in our inventory. We inform you when those happen if those programs are already in the KCTCS inventory. So what do I mean by that? If a welding program, for example, if we already have welding on the books, it's already been on the books for many, many years. If a college that has not taught welding wants to bring on the welding curriculum at their college, they can take that all the way through the approval process with Dr. Quarles. And that comes to the board as an information item. If we, however, any one of our colleges wants to bring on a brand new program that we've never offered, it's not on the books, that actually has to come to the board for a vote through an approval process. And there's a lot of other steps with CPE and our SACS accreditation and those sorts of things. But this go around, we're just going to be informing you of ones that colleges are bringing on and sunsetting at the same time. We'll show both of ones that are already on the books. And so you won't have to vote on these. It's an information item only. So as a recap to the kind of credentials, the associate's degree is our terminal degree, meaning that on the AAS or applied science, what a lot of people call our technical programs, the degree is really designed to finish and go directly into industry. Although you can transfer, many of our technical students do transfer on to a university to continue their education, but we also have transfer focused degrees in the Associate of Arts, Associate of Fine Arts, and Associate of Science degrees that help students get the first 2 years essentially of the bachelor's degree. And then we have a lot of embedded certificates within, typically on the AAS sort of technical side, where students can come in and get a portion of the degree, go to work, then they can come back and get a few more credentials along the way, take more classes if they don't do it all at once. And it gives them a career stair-step process, but that they can continue building their skills that eventually they work their way up through the associate degree. And then we have an intermediate level certification called the diploma. As I was just mentioning, we do bring on new programming as industry needs. We sunset or suspend, and I'll talk to you about the way that we suspend things here in just a moment. When companies, technology changes, needs change, we may not have a need any longer for a particular certificate or even a full-blown associate's degree. So we will suspend that. When we have a suspension, that credential for that college is in suspension for 5 years. If the college wants to bring that back, they can bring that back within the 5 years with a request. If after 5 years they have not brought it back, then it is closed out and they would have to go through the full program approval later in the future if they choose to bring that back. Additions, I just mentioned to you about additions. A lot of times you saw some numbers that Jesse was reporting up here of some of the almost 800 employers that they were tracking in that database system who serve on advisory committee members. For those of you who may be new to the board or haven't heard much about advisory committee members in our faculty, could probably speak to this better than I could. Every one of our programs has an advisory committee made up of industry representatives for that particular group. Marty, I'm sure you have a wide variety of folks on yours from the industries that you're preparing students for. And they advise our faculty in those programs several times a year to make sure that we're teaching the right curriculum, the right competencies, the right equipment, and that we're staying on top of the right credentials to certify that those students are ready to go into those industries. So that's a critical step in this process as we continue to refine. When we do suspend a program, it allows us to redirect those resources into bringing on new bringing on new credentials, new programming, or expanding current ones where we may have more need. So it really is an ever a continuous improvement cycle for us in the efficiency and use of resources for programming. Today, I bring to you several associate degrees, and if you have questions about any of these, we have several of the presidents in the audience. They'd be happy to talk to you, but some of the information is on the screen and certainly in your packet. Henderson's bringing on a new Associate of Applied Science degree in electrical technology with a very focused track. And you'll see in some of these or these descriptions, a lot of this is coming about because of specific industry requests. Here's one for Somerset, the new associate, or for them, a new Associate of Applied Science degree in diagnostic medical sonography. And then lastly, West Kentucky's bringing on for them a new Associate of Applied Science degree in education. Any questions on those three degree paths? Yes, sir.
Is this going to help doing work ready, or why do we do it in AAS on this? You know?
Well, this can prepare, and Dr. Reese, if you wouldn't mind coming to the microphone and maybe adding some context, is the AAS in education has been around for a good amount of time. It can prepare students to go, or graduates to go into education. They certainly, and I think it's even delineated here in the text, that can go on and get the bachelor's degree to become a bachelor degree certified instructor, but not all educators in K-12 need the full-blown bachelor's degree. You can work in the field with an associate's degree.
Two things I would add real briefly, pretty much across the Commonwealth, is the shortage of teachers. We've been doing a program called Regional Educators Awards, going into our 9th year, really promoting and highlighting K-12. And so this pathway is certainly an opportunity to increase that pipeline to make us more competitive is our goal.
I think it's also encourages students to go on to Murray State. Is that correct? Into the College of Education?
Yeah, post-partnership with Murray State University, plus part of that seamless transition. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions? The certificates that are being added, you can see the variety of different colleges here and the more detailed description of which certificates are in your board packet. Now we get to the suspensions. And again, suspensions are for a 5-year period of time. Colleges can bring it back. Sometimes a company may come to town, you bring on a new credential for that company, you train them up, you get the students employed, and then they don't have that need anymore once you've helped them build their employment program. So sometimes you would suspend that unless other companies need that credential. Other times there's just no longer a need for that particular credential. And so we sunset them permanently. But there's where I mentioned the 5-year period. You can see the different colleges that they have are suspending some, whether they be have long-term plans to bring it back or not. Any questions on that, on the additions or suspensions? Okay, I won't go into too much depth into the AI. We did put a more robust report in your packet, and you heard Dr. Howes just talk about from the technology solution, some of the work. A lot of this work is very collaborative across our system. We have work going on in AI in just about every corner of the system, from technology solution to academics, to student services, to institutional research, strategic planning, chatbots providing services for information to folks that would visit our website. So we have a lot of things going on. Some of the things that we have shared with the board in the past, but because we have new members, I'll mention a few of those. If you haven't visited our SharePoint website, we can certainly show you our website that is a resource hub, as Dr. Howes called it, where you can see a number of different things going on across our system. We also have some of our colleges that are actually, going back to Jesse's presentation about workforce solutions, where we go out and do custom training for companies. We have some of our colleges that are actually going out and doing training on AI for companies, for their employees. We have our faculty leadership through our Senate process. They have been charged this year to go back and work with our faculty across the colleges to not just better understand what students need to know in the classroom. We can put students through some training packages and teach them how to, not plagiarize, or how to use AI to better write research reports or find information. That's not necessarily the point here. Our faculty are certainly, for those who don't feel comfortable with AI, where we've got all kinds of professional development opportunities going on and continuing to help train them. But really the point that we've asked the faculty to work through is come back with recommendations of what do the students need to know on how to use AI in their industries when they leave us. That's really the goal here. And in order to train them, what do our faculty need professional development in? So we've got a number of different professional development efforts that we've talked about in the report that's in your packet. We also are a partnering institution on an NSF grant that will bring professional development opportunities to all of our faculty at workshops that'll be held at 4 of our colleges. And that's a partnership with many of our universities that are partnering on this NSF grant that we just found out just a few weeks back that grant was awarded to the lead institution, which is one of our university partners. And so we're waiting to get the detail on when we will be providing that training across our system, where university and community college faculty will have access to that regional training. Any questions on AI? There's a lot going on in this world. Are you talking about that grant in specific, or just our efforts in general? That one's mainly for faculty. It's about how to build. The grant was really focused on how to build an AI workforce for Kentucky. And so the grant was written by one of our universities, but many of the universities and all of us are partners in that particular grant.
One quick point on AI that's not directly applicable to your presentation, but something that's been concerning me lately is, I'm going to say a young boomer, is over the course of time and over the course of my career, I've been able to absorb knowledge, learn from my mistakes. It's iterated internally over time. AI doesn't give our young people the ability to do that, particularly early in their careers or their professions. And I would just challenge you and perhaps some of the faculty to think about, how are you going to help the young students figure out how to learn by trial and error when they're not on some of those very entry-level jobs or entry-level tasks. They don't have to do them anymore because of AI. I think it's just a concern that we have to think through.
I think that's a very good point. Thank you. All right, here we go. This is the fun action part. This is where this is really, if you look to the presence in the back of the room, or any of you who've been to a commencement ceremony, this really is what we're all about here. And this is when our students earn credentials. We can confer them at commencement ceremonies by the power you vest in the presidents as they walk across the stage, shake hands. I've often said at many board meetings, if you ever get a chance as a board member, please call your local president. I'm sure they would love to have you at the ceremony or be a part of the ceremony. It is just one of the most special things. But for the board action, we need you to ratify those credentials that were earned during the time frame that you see up here on the screen between April 5th and July 11th. And there are some of the numbers. It's always exciting to see big numbers there, but Chairman, we would we request that you ratify the credentials conferred for this time frame.
Chair, can I say something before we vote on this? I'd just like to say that as an employer, I really appreciate the flexibility of us being able to offer different services without going through the process of having to create them for each college, because I know before we've had to do that. As an employer, you have to sit and wait. So it's really expedited bringing the services to the employers in the different communities we serve. And so that's really kudos to that. And another way that we don't have to go through single accreditation to provide that service. So I think we need to really expand on that.
Great, thank you.
So.
So moved.
Second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Witten,
Yes, and congratulations.
Regent Cox, Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Gibbons,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn,
Yes.
Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Chairman, that completes my report. Thank you. State and federal government.
Chair Hamilton, President Quarles, thank you. I will try to match the excitement that with my report that is conferring credentials to our students, but that is a high watermark for the institution. So bear with me if I don't. Really, I just want to share and start by saying that since the state legislative session concluded in April or at the end of March, we've really been actively engaged with the Kentucky General Assembly ever since. The days of the quiet interim session are over as the legislature takes on more and more business. That is especially true ahead of a budget session. So it has been a very busy interim session, and KCTCS has been engaged along the way. Our priorities have been educating members on the reform package that we want to bring forward in the 2026 session. You all will recall that was our top priority in 25, but we were told to pause, to hold, because of the number of budget implications that were included in that reform package. Legislators wanted us to wait for a budget year, and that is what is coming in 2026. So we've continued to educate members on what was included in the SJR 179 recommendations that were endorsed by this board. And on that reform list, that sort of non-budget ask for us, it'll be the governance reform that the Board of Regents had endorsed, cleaning up antiquated statutes that still exist from when the system was created, changes for the Fire Commission Board, as well as giving the Fire Commission flexibility to use the funds that it is charged with for cancer screenings for our firefighters and first responders, as well as providing a pathway for departments across the state to utilize some of those resources for emergency purchases. I think Dr. Quarles had shared, I know it's in his report, that the leadership team spent time at the Fire Commission headquarters a few weeks ago. And we got a good lesson in how much some of those things can cost. A Jaws of Life machine cost up to $15,000, and that's a heavy expense for some of our volunteer fire departments. And so the Fire Commission and KCTCS have been thinking creatively about how we can provide support to those departments to do it. And so that'll be part of that reform package request. On the budget side, Senior Vice President Kilburn shared what the top line numbers for that proposal earlier this afternoon. Those went obviously through you all and CPE, and we're finalizing some of the other budget components over the coming weeks that include some of our mandated programs, that include some of those things that are specific to KCTCS that'll be part of our overall budget request. As Dr. Quarles said, we'll take a deeper dive into each of those components at the December board meeting before the legislative session gets underway in January. Stepping back from sort of where our priorities are going to be, there are several topics we can expect will come up this legislative session. We saw some of them in 2025, topics around transfer policies. I think KCTCS has gotten a lot of credit for leading the way with those institutional agreements. The recent one signed with Eastern Kentucky University. But the topic of transfer and transferability of credit will come up, I expect, this legislative session. I think legislature is also interested in credit for prior learning. So we'll be engaged in that conversation as well. You saw House Bill 303, the Heroes to Healers Act last session. I think that premise will expand to other credential areas than outside of just healthcare. The performance funding work group, there was a bill last session that would reconstitute the structure of that work group. I think that will come up again this upcoming legislative session. And I also think there'll be a large discussion on credentials of value. We're seeing that topic at the federal level as new gainful employment rules and other accountability measures from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act get implemented. We'll see something similar, I expect, at least a similar conversation at the state level. So what that looks like for us as we continue to prepare, we've been having community breakfasts like the one that we did at ECTC, the one that we're going to do tomorrow morning, where we're bringing legislators to campus so that they're spending time at our colleges. We're doing college events. I know our presidents around the state are hosting college events that include legislators, whether they be groundbreakings or ribbon cuttings, opportunities to thank members of the General Assembly for the investments that they've made in KCTCS and our colleges. As Jesse shared earlier, Dr. Quarles was in Frankfurt testifying with the SWAT group. Earlier this week, Dr. Quarles, Dr. Kelly, and Dr. Castle testified about our leadership in the aerospace industry. And so these really are just a series of markers that build upon our one-on-one engagement with legislators to tell our story. And that's what we're going to continue to do between now and the first day of the legislative session in 2026. I'll pause there if there's any questions on the state side before we start talking about the federal side.
I think by December, we may have a better understanding what the budget will look like. The consensus forecasting group will have met by then, which will project revenue for the next year. So again, December, we should have a better understanding, and also an official legislative agenda to prioritize. And also we'll have a date for you for the KCTCS Legislative Advocacy Day at the Capitol.
You haven't make any headway in the dual credit thing. You had a really ambitious idea that I really like. Taking over.
Oh, you mean sole provider?
Yeah.
I can say this, that lifted a lot of eyebrows across the state, which we're glad to see. That KCTCS provides well over 70% of all dual credit offerings in Kentucky K-12 systems right now. We're really proud of that, but the chances of that happening through legislative mandate are not great. But it did reaffirm that we are a provider of choice. And in fact, I've somewhat of shouldn't say challenge, but I've talked to CPE saying we need to have a conversation about dual credit in general in Kentucky. We have a lot of obviously four-year publics, but also a lot of private institutions offering dual credit to the point where our career coaches and counselors at K-12 perhaps need some supplemental support because there's so much offered that we do hear stories of students perhaps taking two classes from two different institutions and perhaps not knowing at the time that both classes won't count. And so it's a money issue, but also a cost of time issue as well. And so that's the conversation we hope is elevated out of that ambitious policy ask that we know may not go anywhere. But I will say this, we might have some luck with perhaps seeing some movement on a common course numbering system across the state, but we'll see on that.
Dr. Quarles, I would like to follow up on your answer to Regent Sutherland. Have you had conversations with maybe Kentucky school boards as well as our superintendents, and how might you characterize those contacts and their support for KCTCS?
Oh, they're very supportive because a lot of our, as you know, dual credit instructors are K-12 employees as well. I spent more time with the superintendents, a little bit less time with the school board association, so we'll put that on our to-do list. But very supportive because you got to stop and think about what is offered now for high school students. I mean, we have well over 100, perhaps more students graduate each year with an associate's degree before they graduate high school. It's probably well over 200. And it's just a very different environment than when I went through, perhaps when you all went through. And so for us, we want to have a little bit more precision on the advising of students in K-12.
So switching to the federal level, it's been a busy few months in our nation's capital. There have been a lot of either agency actions or legislative actions that impact higher education broadly and KCTCS in particular. And so the first was the budget reconciliation bill that was signed by President Trump on the 4th of July, commonly referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And while there is a lot of conversation about various components of that bill, I do want to say, and I want to commend Dr. Quarles, the presidents, KCTCS was at the table in a significant way, communicating priorities alongside our community college partners across the country. And while there were significant changes across the entire higher ed landscape, there were a lot of good outcomes in that reconciliation package for community colleges in particular. Where we started in the process and some of the proposals that were included were a significant threat to community colleges. There was a proposal to entirely remove part-time eligibility for Pell recipients. That would have impacted about 32,000 of our students. Where we got to at the end of the day is that part-time protection was preserved for Pell recipients. That was a conversation that we had repeatedly with members of the federal delegation for Kentucky, and we were coordinated with our industry associations, both AACC and ACCT, in that messaging. And we were happy to see both part-time eligibility and the maximum Pell award preserved through that process. And then the really exciting opportunity is what Dr. Quarles shared earlier this afternoon, and that is Workforce Pell. This is one of those programs that has been a priority for community colleges. The devil will really be in the details through that federal rulemaking process. There were certain things outlined in federal statute about eligibility based on timeline, the length of the program based on earning outcomes, but there'll be decisions on what programs really do apply made at both the federal and state level. And so we've had early conversations with industry partners here in Kentucky and some of the other individuals in Kentucky state government that we think may have a role in deciding what programs are eligible. Because it's really going to be sort of a dual decision-making process, a real exercise in federalism for what programs apply. And we want to make sure that KCTCS programs are front and center because that is such a great opportunity. The second big set of federal issues are the executive orders and agency directives. General Counsel Stegall, myself, her team, Our grants folks, both in the system office and in the colleges, track all of those executive orders carefully to make sure that KCTCS is operating in compliance to ensure that those grant awards continue to go to our faculty and staff so that those critical programs continue operating. The third bucket is appropriations. You saw an announcement this week from House Chairman Cole that the House did get all 12 appropriations packages across the finish line. The Senate did as well. I'm not entirely sure all 12 of those will get to the president's desk by September 30th at the end of the federal fiscal year. But today, there's as early as tomorrow, actually, there could be action taken on a continuing resolution. So that's where I expect us to end up. By September 30th is a hope that we have a continuing resolution that gets us to Thanksgiving. But I will say we received a lot of good indications, especially on the Senate side, with some of those appropriations bills. This is something Dr. Quarles has been messaging on and our presidents have been messaging on since May, when the president's budget request first came out, highlighting and elevating the importance of the Maximum Pell Award, TRIO, C-Campus, Supplemental Education Opportunity Grants, Title III funding, Adult Basic Education. Several of these programs that have received some scrutiny throughout the legislative process. All of those in the Senate version of the various appropriations bills that are out there are level funded. And that's certainly where we hope we end up at the end of the appropriations process. But AACC, KCTCS in particular, have been very clear with our delegation on ensuring the longevity of those programs. And we're happy to see the Senate land where they did. We'll see where we end up through the rest of the process. In short, I think if I would put it all, tie a bow on this, is I think a lot of the indications, a lot of the data that we've shared today, that more than 70% of our students graduating without any debt, record enrollment, record number of credentials. I mean, our policymakers are hearing these strong trends and trajectories. And we're at a moment, I think, where higher education and community colleges in particular have an opportunity to differentiate ourselves as the true workforce providers and that affordable leg up for students trying to set themselves on a better path. And I think that message is really resonating. Happy to take any questions about activities at the federal level.
Just to supplement that, we actually have several of our presidents going to DC. I know that President Reese and President McCullough recently both in DC. We're having our own fly-in early October, continuing to have touch points with not just our congressional delegation, but also key members on key committees. I think we met with Chairman Cassidy's office back in May. Because of the relevancy of the bill at the time. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're doing a full court press in Washington, D.C., as well as state government as well. And we would love for you all to be at our advocacy day in the spring. Just a few announcements before we adjourn for the day. We are way ahead of schedule. I don't see anybody complaining about that. But tomorrow, we really look forward to a really great update on the Huron report and what we've accomplished and where we're at on that. So thanks ahead of time for those who prepared those documents. I know that our regents were asking about that at the last meeting, so we'll have an update for you. We're also going to have a presentation by Dr. Scott Williams on the geographic footprint. If you recall back in June, this is somewhat of a new, somewhat of a monitoring / instrument for us to kind of check in on the health of the colleges, enrollment, financial, credentials, accreditation, but also the utility of our buildings, the 340 plus buildings that we have. We're also going to hear another presentation about strategic planning, which I'm really excited about this because my hope is for us to bring together Huron, SJR, all the other recommendations and initiatives, including from CPE, and put it in one package for us to go forward with. So really excited about that. We want your all's input on strategic planning. And of course, we'll hear from the Kentucky Fire Commission as well. Before we wrap up here, presidents, do you have any announcements you'd like to make? Or executive team? We have an agenda for tonight.
we can return or check into the hotel. And I believe we'll have, we do have shuttles, is that correct? 4:45? Yes. At 5:45, dinner here. Then we have a special treat. We've been invited to the Fisher residence for dessert tonight. I think that overlooks the Ohio River. It'll be really nice. Tomorrow morning, we have a community breakfast at 8 o'clock. The mayor is confirmed to be here, as well as several members of the legislature and metro government. It's important for us to be here on time because there's a lot of people in Louisville, so just plan accordingly. We have approximately 80,000 people at the fairgrounds today for Louder Than Life. We also have Churchill Downs opening up, and I think there's a big U of L football game this weekend. So just please plan accordingly. There's a lot of folks in town as well. Other than that, any questions today? Yeah. Yeah. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All righty. Well, this concludes our agenda for today. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn until tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern.
Motion.
Regent Stevens, you want to second that?
Oh, yes, sir. More than happy to.
All right, any objections to the motion to adjourn? Motion passes by consensus.
All right, thank you.
We had met.
Fantastic.